Mr. Secretary, are we ready to go?
Let me check with Mr. Penzis. Do we have a quorum, Mr. Penzis?
Yes.
Okay, great. We're ready, Mr. Chairman.
Very good. Good afternoon. The Memphis and Shelby County Board of Adjustment is hereby called to order for its regularly scheduled meeting of March 24th, 2021. My name is Tim Rainey. I'm chairman of the board. Mr. Josh Whitehead serves as secretary of the board. Mr. Whitehead, may I get a roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Ms. Baker.
Here.
Mr. Claybrook.
Here.
Ms. Doss.
Present.
Mr. Jackson.
Here.
Mr. Malazri.
Here.
Vice Chair Savage Towns. Ms. Scarlock. And Mr. Chairman.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right, very good. The Memphis and Shelby County Board of Adjustment is the oldest appointed governmental body in Memphis and Shelby County. We were established in 1925. The board hears appeals from the administration of the zoning ordinance, requests for variances from the zoning ordinance, and other requests as articulated by local zoning laws adopted pursuant to the enabling legislation. The 8 members of the board are appointed, 4 by the mayor of Memphis and 4 by the mayor of Shelby County, with confirmation by the Memphis City Council or Shelby County Board of Commissioners. We serve without remuneration. At this time, I would like to swear in staff. So I'm expecting you're raising your hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
I do.
Very good. May I get a motion from the board to approve the last month's meeting, minutes from last month's meeting?
John Jackson, so moved.
Is there a second?
Second, Doss.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Dawes. Are there any discussion on the minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving last month's meeting or last month's meeting's minutes, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? All right, the motion passes. Mr. Secretary, please provide us the Secretary's report, if there is one this month, and then explain the procedure for today's meeting.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. As far as a Secretary's report, I did want to just remind for all of those who are not accustomed to our telephonic meetings, we're going to be following the staff reports that are hyperlinked in our agenda. Where do you find the agenda? There are 2 places. The YouTube page of our division, that's youtube.com/C as in channel /Division of Planning and Development. And this meeting, since it's running live, should pop up, and there's an agenda link at the bottom. The other way is to use a search engine and look for Memphis and or Shelby County Board of Adjustment, and close to the top of the board's homepage is a link to most recent agenda. That said, the staff reports are one way to follow the meeting. The other way is to view our PowerPoints that will be streaming on the YouTube channel. If you're on this call, you do not need to have the audio from YouTube. YouTube tends to run about 5 seconds slow, so just be sure to, particularly when you're unmuted, just mute your computer so the YouTube is on silent. With that, the procedure for our meeting will be as follows. I'll introduce each case as listed on the agenda, copies of which are posted on the 2 websites I just mentioned. At the conclusion of a staff presentation for each case, the applicant will present his or her case. After the applicant's presentation, the board will first hear from those speakers in support of the application, followed by those in opposition. Finally, the applicant will be given a rebuttal period. Pursuant to our rules of procedure, the timing of those periods are as follows. The applicant and his or her supporters get a total of 10 minutes, followed by 10 minutes for the opposition, and finally that 2-minute rebuttal period is 2 minutes for the applicant. These times do not include Q&A between members of the public and members of the board. That freezes our clock. At the conclusion of all that testimony and all that Q&A, the board will then close the public hearing portion of the case, make a motion, and deliberate. If during the deliberation there are additional questions that are needed from members who provided testimony, a motion shall be made to reopen the public hearing. A 2/3 vote is required, and then once that occurs, the chair will ensure that both sides are given an equal amount of additional time. All motions made by the board will be made in the affirmative. The private acts governing the board require the affirmative vote of at least 5 members to approve an application, regardless of those number of board members present. And Mr. Chairman, as we proceed through this afternoon, I will be looking periodically to see if our last 2 board members join us. The board may also vote to hold an application for a period to not exceed 90 days with the consent of the applicant, or 30 days without that consent. All section numbers that we refer to this afternoon come from the Memphis and Shelby County Unified Development Code, the zoning code for the city of Memphis and the county of Shelby, which became effective on January 1st, 2011. I'll introduce the entire UDC to make it part of today's record, thus dispensing with the reading of the individual sections. This body is vested with the power to act on these cases under Article 9 of the UDC. Mr. Chairman, I submit that all cases have been filed in proper order, all applicants have been notified of this hearing, and all other notice requirements have been fulfilled pursuant to the code.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. At this point, the board will establish a consent agenda. To establish the consent agenda, the Secretary will call out each eligible case. If any member of staff or board member objects to the case being placed on consent, he or she should say so at the time the case is called. Once the consent agenda is established, the board will vote on all cases placed on the consent agenda as a whole, will not hold individual public hearings on those cases. Mr. Secretary, which items on our agenda today are eligible to be placed on consent?
Starting with agenda item number 1, that's a resolution of the Board of Adjustment that continuation of electronic meetings is necessary to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens of Memphis and Shelby County pursuant to Governor Lee's Executive Order number 78. Mr. Chairman, this will get us through April, and in May, we're following the City Council since we use their space. If the City Council starts in-person meetings in May, I will poll this body to make sure if we're comfortable with that, and so we could meet as early as May in person and see what each other look like. We may have forgotten, number 3, this is docket BOA 2021-0006, located at 3896 Lamar. The applicant is Mohammedandi Janul. The use district is the CMU3 commercial district with an approved Board of Adjustment case. And the request are variances from subsection 4915E and subsection 497D2B2 to allow the digitization of a non-conforming sign. Next is number 5. This is docket BOA 2021-0014, located at 12,701 U.S. Highway 64. The applicant is the Design Team Sign Company, LLC. The use district is the Conservation Agricultural District with an approved special use permit, and the request are variances from 496L1, 497, with regard to a pole sign. And Mr. Chairman, we received late word this afternoon that I think the applicant has read our conditions and is requesting a hold. So if number 5 survives the consent calendar, it would be approved as a hold as opposed to the rest of the cases, which would be consent as approval. That brings us to item number 6, docket BOA 2021-0017, located at 1927 Vinton. The applicant is Lauren Edmonds. The use district is the R6 within a historic overlay, and the request is a variance from paragraph 272B2 to allow an accessory structure to encroach into the required side yard. Agenda item number 7 is docket BOA 0018, located at 108 Harbortown Boulevard. The applicants are Michael Jr. and Kenya Hooks, and the use district is a planned development. The request is a variance from paragraph 272A3 and 276 with regard to a swimming pool within a required front yard. Agenda item number 8, docket BOA 2021-0019, located at 45 South Idlewild. The applicant is Midtown Apartment Holdings, LLC, represented by Cindy Reeves. The use district is the multifamily RU4 district within the Midtown overlay, and the request is a variance from paragraph 497B2 to allow a sign larger than permitted. Agenda item number 9, docket BOA 2021-0021, located at 7124 Winchester. The applicant is Octopharma Plasma. The representative is Chris Haskins. The use district is essentially a planned development with an approved Board of Adjustment, and the request is modifications to that approved Board of Adjustment case to allow an additional wall sign. Agenda item number 10, docket BOA 2021-0022, located at 1475 Vinton. The applicants are Will and Haley Hudson. The use district is the R6 within a historic overlay district, and the request is a variance from paragraph 272B2 to allow an addition of an accessory structure encroaching into the required side yard. Now we go to agenda item number 11, docket BOA 2021-23, located at 1617 Forest. The applicant is Walter Stokes, represented by Barry Jones. The use district is the R6 within a historic overlay, and the request is a variance from 272D1A and 272B2 to allow the reconstruction of accessory dwelling on a lot of less than 10,000 square feet. Agenda item number 12, docket BOA 2021-24, located at 3831 Cardinal. The applicants are Andrew A. Thompson and Brian E. Jones. The use district is the R6 residential district, and the request is a variance from subsection 361 to allow a carport addition into the required side yard setback. Agenda item number 13, docket BOA 2021-25, located at 3283 Gallery. The applicant is Paul Hughes, represented by Doyle Ricks and Tim DeAgostino. The use district is the EMP, but within a planned development. This is Southwind. The request is a variance from pursuant to subsection 329F to allow an encroachment into a platted required rear yard. Agenda item number 14, docket BOA 2021-26, located at 995 South Lauderdale. The applicant is Shelby County Schools. The use district is RU3, multifamily, and the request are variances from 496E2 and 497B1 with regard to a video message pole sign. And finally, Mr. Chairman, number 16, which is docket BOA 2021-29, located at 7207 Bridgewater Church Road. The applicant is Viola Hunt. The use district is R6, and the request is a use variance from 252 and bulk variances from 261D3 and 261D9 with regard to a mobile home. So, Mr. Chairman, conversely, that leaves us with public hearings for 2, 4, and 15.
Okay, I have a quick question for you. When case number 3, is that for a hold or for approval?
Last month we held it, but this month we're ready for prime time and approval.
Okay, when I click on my hyperlink for that particular case, it is just one page, and it's dated February, I didn't notice before, it's dated February 24th, and it says hold for 1 month.
Okay.
I don't know that I've had the opportunity to look at that case.
No, that's our mistake. We hyperlinked the wrong case. So what we'll do, I want to give y'all the opportunity to look over that case. Let's just have a hearing on that.
Yeah, that sounds.
To at least do a short presentation.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. So that leads.
We kind of wanted to change one of the conditions anyway. So this is the universe talking to us.
All right, sounds good. So without, unless there's objection from the board, I would look for a motion to approve items 1, 4, 5 as a hold, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 16 on today's consent agenda.
Board Member Jackson.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Whitehead, would you give us a roll call vote, please?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. I'll start with Ms. Skurlock. And Vice Chair Savage Towns. Mr. Malazri.
Yes, but I'd like to recuse myself from item number 7.
On number 7. Okay, got it. Mr. Jackson.
Yes.
Ms. Doss.
Yes.
Mr. Claybrook.
Yes.
Ms. Baker.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
That's 6 ayes, and on number 7, just a bare minimum 5 ayes.
We made it. So if you're here for those cases we just voted on, we appreciate it. And y'all all have been approved, except for case number 5, which has been held for 30 days. All right, Mr. Secretary, you want to call our first case we're going to hear today?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Agenda item number 2 is docket BOA 2021-003, located at 3520 Walker. The applicant is the Gita Brista Corporation, represented by Neil Patel and I believe David Bray. The use district is the CMU2 Commercial Mixed Use District within the University Overlay, and the request is a variance from paragraph 8310B2 to permit a trash collection service area in front of a principal structure.
All right, very good. Mr. Davis, would you like to give us a staff report?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, members of the board and public. This is Brett Davis with the Division of Planning and Development. So I'll give a short presentation on the background of this case.
Perfect.
And next slide. Okay, so as Secretary Whitehead has said, location 3520 Walker Avenue. Owner and applicant are the Gita Brista Corporation, represented by Mr. Patel, who is the primary member of that corporation, as well as Mr. David Bray, who I believe is on the call. The request is variance from that paragraph to permit a trash collection service area in front of the structure. I'll point out that this is a variance as written from Chapter 8.3, which is the University District Overlay Chapter. So this requirement is found in that overlay, but it's also a general requirement in all of Memphis and unincorporated Shelby County, found elsewhere in the code. So nowhere in new development is a dumpster or trash collection service area permitted in front of the primary structure. It's always supposed to be to the side or rear. The area is just over half an acre, and the zoning is CMU2 within the University District Overlay. Next slide. Let's take a look at a few maps, and we'll just sort of go through these slides pretty quickly. Here is the location. This is an aerial photograph, so let me sort of walk you through it just a bit. You'll note that there's, so Walker Avenue's to the south, to the bottom. There's about 20 parking spaces between the street and the building, which has a courtyard typology, and 32 apartment units, which seem to mostly serve university students. There's also a small backyard and 2 very small side yards. I'll also take this slide to point out, or just to note, that 64 notices of public hearing were mailed. We received 6 letters of opposition, all of them from notable neighborhood presences listed here, 3 of which are neighborhood organizations and 3 of which are businesses located on Walker Avenue on this block. Next slide. Here's the zoning map. So the blue striping is the University District. This is a rare instance of CMU2 zoning that is not tied into an approved conditional zoning district. It's just straight CMU2, so we don't see that too often, as is everything around it. Both Walker Avenue and Highland Street are designated shopfront frontages, which brings in certain standards related to building placement, parking, et cetera, for new development. Next slide, please. A land use map. So brown is, of course, multifamily residential, and I'll point out that this is the only residential property on this block on either side of Walker. Next slide. Here is an as-built survey. So we see the dumpster area to the southwest, as noted here. This is an application requesting forgiveness, not permission. So the dumpster is there. And we'll explore this in the photographs that I believe come up after this slide. So here is the service area at the southwest corner of the property. To the left in this photograph is another dumpster that belongs to the chain pizza restaurant right there. It's my understanding that that dumpster has an approved placement to the rear of the Domino's, and it's slowly inched forward, according to someone I spoke with. So it's not supposed to be there, but it is there. Next slide, please. Zooming out a little bit, here's the whole apartment building. There's some other apartments in the background, and there's the dumpster again. And you'll also note that short brick wall in the front, which that wall did extend to the west side of the property, but it was removed to install the service area. Next slide. And just to place you, here is a view west down Walker, looking at the Highland Strip sign on Highland Street and the service area. Okay, next slide. Finally, well, maybe there's a few more photos. Here's a canopy tree. A similar tree was on the other corner of the property, and that was removed in addition to that brick wall to pour the concrete and put the dumpster down. And we do have a condition related to that. And we can go through the next few slides pretty quickly, please. Here's the rear yard. Next two photos are going to be of each side yard, just to show you how narrow they are. And finally, the last photo is, this is seen from the backyard of the apartment building. Another dumpster. This is on the property of the Wang's restaurant on Highland. So that dumpster was previously used by the residents of this building under previous ownership. The new owner, Mr. Patel, was unable to reach a similar agreement with the owner of that property, hence this request. But I will point out that it did have pretty easy access from the backyard of the apartment building, which was an opening in the gate. Okay, next slide. I'll also point out that this afternoon I did receive a site plan from the applicant, and I'll describe that in a moment. So some narrative conclusions. The Gita Brister Corporation has requested a variance from UDC standards that require trash collection service areas to be located to the side or rear of a lot's primary structure. The 32-unit apartment building is on Walker Avenue just to the east of the Highland Strip. It is the only residential use on this predominantly commercial block. The corporation acquired the property in 2020. The previous landlord had instructed tenants to dispose of their trash on an adjacent parcel with whose owner he had had an agreement. Mr. Patel and that adjacent property owner were unable to reach a similar accord. The applicant removed a canopy street tree, poured a concrete pad, and installed this dumpster without proper municipal permission in an attempt to resolve this issue. The dumpster now sits adjacent to the sidewalk at the lot's southwest corner. Next slide. We'll discuss our required findings. This apartment building was constructed prior to the adoption of the UDC or the UDO. Its narrow side yards, as well as the lack of an alley, make it impractical to place a trash collection service area anywhere but the front yard. At the same time, residents are owed a way to dispose of their trash on site. These facts, taken together, reflect the request's compliance with the unusual characteristics and practical difficulties variance criteria. However, as noted in several letters of opposition, the existing dumpster does not meet variance criteria 4 and 5. The current dumpster configuration impairs the intent of the code and is injurious to the businesses of Walker Avenue, which has recently seen significant public streetscaping investment. To bring the request into compliance with all variance criteria, staff recommends conditions of approval that require the reconfiguration of the service area, and on the next and final slide we'll see those conditions, which essentially require a minimum setback of 25 feet. So push that dumpster back. We point out that no reduction in parking will bring the site into violation of the code. And then to have a minimum 8-foot tall brick enclosure around that dumpster, to put the landscaping area back and replant a canopy street tree where there was one, and then submit revised plans to show compliance with these conditions. The plan that we received this afternoon, I believe, I haven't looked at it closely, I believe does show the first two conditions being met, and I'll point out that it only eliminates one of the 20 parking spaces, so at the sort of northwestmost parking space, and it would be a rolling dumpster. So I think the intent of that is to keep those 4 parking spaces in front of it so the collection company could roll it out without having to go through any other parking spaces, and hopefully roll it back in. And with that, I conclude my presentation. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I hate to mess up the rhythm, but Jeffrey, is there a way to determine who's... Okay, thank you. I hate to mess up the rhythm, but I think you inadvertently said something, and I don't want that inadvertence to make us lose our applicant on number 4. We're getting our phones blown up on number 4. You may have accidentally said it was on consent, but I just want to remind everybody that that was, if it did indeed happen, it was an applicant. It was an accident, and Mr. Applicant on number 4, please don't leave the phone. That's it.
Okay, yeah, correct. Sorry about that.
And Mr. Chairman, this is JT. I need to recuse myself from this particular case that we're on now.
Okay, thank you, JT. Does the board have any questions for Mr. Davis at this time? Hearing none, we're going to move on to the applicant. Is Mr. Bray or Mr. Patel where they can talk to us?
This is David Bray with the Bray Firm, 2950 Stage Plaza North. I believe Mr. Patel is also on the call. Neil?
Okay.
Yes, this is
Jeffrey,
Neil Patel.
are they both where I can, go ahead and give your name and address as well, Mr. Patel.
7726 US Highway 51 North, Millington, Tennessee.
Okay, I'm going to swear y'all both in. Do y'all both swear to tell the truth, so help you, the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Yes.
Okay, very good. All right, y'all have 10 minutes, so go ahead and tell us what your thoughts on this.
Okay. I don't think we'll take 10 minutes, and I'll sort of tell you where we are with the site plan. Mr. Davis, I think, got most of that in there. So as he said, we've sent a revised plan this morning that has the dumpster enclosure that would be located on the most northwest space, parking space that was on that site plan. If you go back to the aerial view, if somebody could flip back to the presentation, I can tell you where that is setting. So we've got that with an enclosure with a note that it will be a rollout type dumpster, because with the tightness of that parking lot, we can't get a garbage truck in there to service it under its current condition. Oh, that's great. That picture shows it. So the blue car, that will become the dumpster enclosure. So, and I think Mr. Patel said it would be a 4-yard dumpster on rollers that can be rolled out on trash day, or possibly multiple trash days to once they figure out a service rhythm for this. And then we have, so that's more than the 25 feet that provides the enclosure. And then we have noted on there to remove the elevated concrete island that was created for the dumpster as it sits now, and to bring back in a canopy tree in that location. And obviously, we'll work with staff to work out any other details on that. So that's where we stand today. I don't know if Mr. Patel has anything more that he wants to add, and then after his time, we'll just reserve time for rebuttal.
Not really. No, that's pretty much what David said, and I'm good with that.
Okay, very good. Well, y'all used about 2 minutes, which reserves 8 minutes to give y'all 10 minutes at the end for rebuttal. So, real quick, and there's no one else here to talk in support, correct, Jeffrey?
Correct.
Okay, then we'll move on to the opposition.
Okay.
And then just
Cody
tell me who we're
Fletcher,
gonna speak.
and he's
Fletcher?
actually Cody Fletcher's here, but the other person is not on the call, so he has the full time.
Okay, all right, well, Cody, can you hear us?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
Mary
ma'am.
Baker, I just want to make sure, we haven't missed the opportunity to ask the applicant questions, have we?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry,
Back on.
we sure did, so let's go ahead and before we go to them, let's ask some questions. Sorry about that, Mary.
That's okay.
Do you have a
That's okay.
question?
I do have a question.
All right, go ahead.
Yes, one particularly for the applicant. Do you own any other apartments?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And then the other one, I guess, is for either of you who want to answer it. You say a rollout dumpster. Where would it be rolled at the time of trash day? Well, where would they roll it to?
That would probably, this is David Bray, that would probably be something that they have to work out with the waste collection company. Depending on the size of the truck that they were sending in to pick it up, it could just be literally from that picture rolled out to the center of the drive aisle so they could pull in and pick up, and then back out, or possibly closer to the street if that's their preference. But that's a detail that will likely have to be worked out going forward.
Okay, thank
Mr.
you.
Bray,
That's all my questions, Mr.
Okay, very good. So just, and you may have said this and I may have missed it, is it someone at the apartment complex that will roll it out, or is it actually the waste collection people that will roll it out to where they need to pick it up and then stick it right back?
I have actually seen this both ways. It may be waste collection that comes in and does it, and their driver gets out and accesses it, empties it, and then gets back in his truck. Or it may be a case where they ask for it to be rolled out similar to what a lot of us do on whatever your day of the week is, for them to come by and pick up on their schedule.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Neil, do you have
any
any
other
more
questions?
direction from them on how that would be?
No, that would be either. Yeah, I mean, typically that's the way it would happen. Yes.
Typically, which way? Is there somebody on site that could roll it out? I mean, there's not a superintendent.
There's a houseman on site.
There is,
Yeah,
okay.
there's a groundsman. Yes.
Okay, all right, well, that helps. Okay, are there any other questions of the applicant? All right, hearing none now, we'll move on to the opposition. So, Mr. Fletcher, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can. Will you give your name and address for the record for me, please?
Yes, my name is Cody Fletcher, and my address is 460 South Highland Street.
Okay, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
All right, thank you. My name is Cody Fletcher. I serve as Executive Director of the University Neighborhoods Development Corporation. We are opposed to this variance for several reasons. I'll begin. I hope you had a chance to look at the letter I submitted, but if not, I'll go over some of those points now. First of all, on Walker Avenue specifically, in 2016, the UNDC invested over $1 million in streetscape enhancements, courtesy of a TDOT grant and a City of Memphis grant that was aimed at increasing walkability and pedestrian safety. There was new sidewalks, new street trees, new crosswalks, new angled parking. really to enhance the pedestrian experience. Also, in the summer of this year, we will begin construction on a $6 million streetscape enhancement project on Highland, which, as you know, is about 100 feet away from this location. So we're spending a lot of time and money and effort in trying to improve the streetscape of this area. There's 22,000 students at the University of Memphis who frequent this area, and of course the neighborhood residents and business owners as well. Unfortunately, in this situation, a very prominent and large canopy tree was removed without permission, and so that is degrading to the streetscape experience. Also, this application is contrary to the UDC, it's contrary to the UDO, and I would just like to point out again something that the staff member said, that the applicant is asking for forgiveness. He's not asking for permission at this point. So the UNDC, again, is strongly opposed to this. I believe there was unanimous opposition across several businesses, several neighborhood organizations in the area. So again, we just offer our opposition, and we ask that, if you have there's not really a good picture here, but it's really not looking great right now with those two dumpsters and a sofa on the sidewalk. It's kind of a safety concern. It's an environmental concern. It's an aesthetic concern. And I understand the conditions of pushing it back, and I'm glad that the applicant has agreed to those. I would just hope that there's some sort of standards in place to ensure that all of this happens appropriately. And thank you. That's all the time I'll take.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Fletcher. Are there any questions for Mr. Fletcher?
Yeah, I've got a question.
Okay, go ahead. It's Carson, right?
Yeah, this is Carson. So,
okay, go ahead,
just
sir.
looking at this presentation last night and knowing the constraints of the apartment complex, where is there a possibility that the UNDC and everybody else that read the letters of opposition for him to get trash service? I guess that's what I'm trying to wrap my brain around, and I understand taking out the tree was not the right thing to do, and definitely asking for forgiveness instead of permission. But I guess, is there a recommendation from opposition on where they could see a trash can going that would meet all these guidelines, but could also be serviced by a trash company?
Sure. So the answer I would give for that is twofold. One, the staff and Mr. Davis mentioned that with the previous owner of the apartment complex, there was an arrangement with an adjacent business owner to dispose of the trash in that dumpster. It's my understanding that same offer was made to the applicant, and he turned it down. The second part, I would say, and I guess my question, I would answer it with another question, which would be, has the owner explored any other alternative trash options besides a dumpster? One that comes to mind for me, I have a friend who lives in an apartment on Harbor Town, and the residents of that building place their trash outside their door, and then an employee comes around on trash day and picks that up and places it either in a dumpster or some other trash collection location. But I think it avoids some of the problem we have here.
I'd like to say something on that, if I may.
Not yet. Thank you, Mr. Patel. We'll come back to you though. Okay. Are there any other questions for Mr. Fletcher? All right, hearing none, we'll move back to the applicant. So, Mr. Patel, you'll have 10 minutes, and so go ahead.
The arrangement that was made with the previous owner was never extended out to me. When I took over, it was said that to me that the previous owner used to use that gentleman's, whoever the owner is of the other property, his brother as his attorney, so they were doing him a favor. and that would be they were just doing that as a favor to that owner. As I am a new owner, they said to me that that would not be the case with me, and so I would have to find my own way of disposing the trash in the dumpster. And I've looked at every other option, to be honest with you. I've looked at everything. You know, having somebody there to, especially with staffing issues sometimes that we face, having somebody to go around, pick up their trash, and then, you know, I'd still need a dumpster on site. I mean, I've got to provide that as a service to my tenants.
All right, and do you have any other rebuttal to anything else that was said, or do you want to sit there?
Nope,
I know that y'all reserved some time, so that's why I'm asking.
Mr. Rainey, or Chairman Rainey, I would just add, you know, I understand the opposition's concern. You know, Mr. Patel sort of inherited this situation. I'm not real sure how the original construction happened without any sort of thought towards trash collection on it. It was ideal when there was an agreement between the previous owner of the site and the neighbor to make that work, but apparently that has not continued. And so, you know, this is just a case of trying to make the best of sort of a bad situation. And shouldn't have constructed the pad out on the front. I mean, I certainly agree with the opposition. That's an eyesore. Agree with staff. You know, that's an eyesore with the dumpster located out on that sidewalk. I think the solution we have now and that we've worked out with staff is one that everybody can live with and makes the best of a situation that you know, clearly just was not anticipated on the front end, and you know, because that back area would have accommodated one with some sort of alternative access, but we can't get there with the side yard that we have. So that's all we have.
Okay, are there any questions from the board for the applicant? All right, hearing none, I assume you're ready to discuss. I do have one question for staff that has the Domino's Pizza been cited for where their dumpster has meandered to? Do we know?
Based on an unverified conversation I had with another neighborhood advocate, yes, but I can't say for sure.
Sure. Okay, that was just more my curiosity than anything to do with today's case. So, would someone like to offer us a motion to approve this case? Let's see, it's BOA 21-3 as conditioned by staff, so we can then discuss.
So moved, just to put it on the floor.
Second.
Okay, I got movement and a second. Do y'all have any thoughts on this y'all like to talk about? All right, well, hearing none, I assume you're ready to vote. Mr. Whitehead, Ms. Baker?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, ma'am. Okay.
I'm planning to vote against this application, and just wanted to give the reasons why.
Okay.
Number one is that the applicant bought the property knowing the existing conditions of trash disposal, that he would not have enough room to do that on that site. And of course, I asked him if he owned other apartment complexes, apartment buildings or whatever. He said yes. The variance clearly does not meet criteria 4 and 5 because it's obviously detrimental to the area. And one other thing that I want to say is I realize this is a small area, an area of small properties relative to today's requirements. And a lot of times that's the condition that I think is right to approve a variance. But I can't feel that way on this one because of the damage the dumpster does near the sidewalk in what has become the University District Town Center. And I'm just not convinced that the rolling it out is going to be the solution that you might want it to be, that it would never get left out there and all of that. And so all that said, I'm going to vote against this application.
Okay. Can I ask you a question?
Me?
I'm just in general, would a condition that required the rolling of the dumpster to only be done by the waste people and like basically move from its enclosure and put immediately back, would that help you on this? As opposed, right now we don't know. Like the guy might move it out at 7 the night before and not pick it up until the next 2 mornings later or something like that. Would putting any sort of condition help your thoughts? Because we do have I'm stuck. Like I hear what you're saying, but like the property is kind of like, what else do? You got to have a dumpster somewhere, and I don't think we have to require people to do things off their property. The thing was built without access back when it could have been. So I didn't know if a condition like that would make you feel differently about it.
I mean, I think any conditions that you could add would certainly be a good thing. But, I just know that conditions like this, they get violated. I mean, we don't even know whether the Domino's has been cited for their dumpster inching out there. It just it becomes a burdensome code enforcement issue almost every time. So, it helps, but I just feel like he bought this property knowing it was like this, and he already had other properties, so he had to have known that he had to work something out or don't buy it. That's just what keeps going on in my head. So.
Okay. Any other thoughts?
Mr. Chairman, John Jackson.
Yes, sir.
A comment to Ms. Baker's comment. I understand where a fellow board member is, but I mean, Ms. Baker, do you know of another alternative that he could possibly use? I mean, I'm trying to. I'm
well,
torn
it would require him to enter into a cooperative agreement with neighbors, or he would have to do something like what Mr. Fletcher said that they do in Hart. The thing that hangs me up on this is that he had to have known that he had that problem when he bought it. That's what keeps hanging me up. And it seems like the ones that are going to be burdened with the issue is more going to be the surrounding neighborhood. And this is like the town center for the University District now. So I just struggle with it for all those reasons.
So the present solution, Mr. Chairman, that we have is to build a dumpster enclosure, that's further back from the street, and they pull it out,
right,
do what we do, and it'll be screened with the brick wall and, of course, gates on the front of it. So if our concern is that the dumpster is going to be, Ms. Baker, is your concern that the dumpster is going to be left out, or your concern is where the new location is going to be? Or is it a combination?
It mainly has to do with having to, do all the moving and stuff like this. Let me say this. If the other members of the board are convinced that because of the small size of the property relative to the requirements, that this should be approved, I will go along with it. It's not the way I look at it. I'll just say that when I first, when I looked at it and thought about it. But I'm willing to go along if everyone else feels that we should do this. So how about that?
Well, you made us feel sufficiently bad for browbeating you, but how about this?
I'm taking wrong in looking at it the way I am.
No, I get it. How about this? I would like to add a friendly amendment that the dumpster only be taken out of the enclosure for when the waste company is picking it up. So it's not, Josh, maybe you can help me with some wording on that. I don't want it sitting out at the curb. It's got to be pulled out just by someone as it's being, emptied. Can you think of some better language for that?
Mr. Chairman.
Well, you and I have rules. Well, we have rules for our dumpsters under the Code of Ordinances. So I think one way would be just to say the trash collection shall follow the City of Memphis Code of Ordinances with regard to timing of the removal from the enclosure. Right, because if you and I put trash out 2 days ahead, we'll get a citation. And if we don't put it back, in our driveway 2 days after, that's a citation. I want to say it's a 24-hour window both ways. If I'm
7 to 7, yeah.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, this is Brett Davis.
Yeah.
One
Yes,
option, instead of concerning the time it would be rolled in and out, would just be to not allow a rolling dumpster, which I think the main intent of the rolling dumpster is to save parking. I mean, if you had a non-mobile dumpster, it'd probably eat up 5 parking spaces instead of 1 to allow for truck access, but it would probably guarantee that it wouldn't have to be removed from its enclosure. That's just one option too.
No, that makes sense, but 20 parking spaces for 32 units in a congested area, I hate to take that down to 15, but I do hear what you're saying. Josh, let me ask you this. I don't know if you know the ordinance well enough. Is the ordinance different on the movement of dumpsters than it is for you and I putting our trash bins out of our houses?
There may or may not even be an ordinance regarding private pickup. Let's just say commercial pickup. I'm sure there is one, but there may not be. We could, well, I can go on Muni Code right now, but we may, if we're this interested, we may want to roll this case, have another hearing, and come back to it.
I don't know that I'm that interested. I think I'd rather just make it. I think I'd rather just make it a condition that the dumpster only be rolled out, at the time it is being picked up, and not for some time period waiting on the waste disposal service. They need to pull it out when the truck is there, and put up when the truck leaves. That would be the condition I would want. I don't want it sitting on the street because, an hour becomes 12 hours. And now you're in, what Mary's worried about is just sitting out there like it is already. And so I think if they want to do a dumpster there, they need to do it right. But I don't want them to lose too much parking either. And I think that's the way. And if it costs an extra $10 a week to get it picked up because the guy's got to get out of his truck and move it, then so be it.
Chairman, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Jack. Can we ask the owner, does he know if whoever comes to pick it up can be responsible for rolling it out and putting it back? I mean, if that's the answer, then
He seemed to say it could happen both ways, but I know that money talks, and if you want somebody to roll it out, they'll roll it out. They just might charge you.
well, then let's condition it where, you know, the pickup company has to do that and he just has to pay for it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll take that as a condition, the dumpster has to be rolled out and put back up by the pickup company. Or by instead of that, we'll call it the waste disposal service.
There you go.
Is there any objection to adding that friendly amendment to this? I don't hear any, so that will be added. Is there any other discussion on this case?
I appreciate y'all listening to my concerns about this.
Absolutely.
I really do.
They're very valid.
And Ms. Baker, we need 5 votes, so I think it was mainly to get this across the finish line.
Understand.
All right, with no other discussion, I assume you're ready to vote. Mr. Whitehead, will you give us a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Claybrook?
Yes.
Ms. Scurlock? Vice Chair Savage Towns? Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Ms. Doss?
Yes.
Ms. Baker?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, I believe the standards of 9.22.6 are being met in this case.
That's 5 ayes.
All right, thank you much. You're approved. Now I believe we're on to case number 4 that I tried to get rid of earlier inadvertently.
No, not yet. We're at 3 because we didn't have
we'll
a
do
staff
3. That's on Lamar. Okay, I'm sorry.
Agenda. And Mr. Chairman, if y'all are at your computers, I just sent you the appropriate staff report.
Right, I have it pulled up.
And Mr. Our colleague working the YouTube will scroll through that staff report for the listening audience. Agenda item number 3, which is docket BOA 2021-006, located at 3896 Lamar. The applicant is Mohammed Ali Janul. The use district is the CMU 3 commercial district with an approved variance from 1971, and the variance is from subsection 4915E and subitem 497D2B2 to allow the digitization of a nonconforming sign.
Okay, Mr. Skinner, would you like to give us a quick case report on this?
Absolutely, and I do apologize. You'll be hearing a lot from me today for the rest of the afternoon. Okay. So good to hear from you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Yes, I'll go through this pretty briefly. So this is a request for 2 variances from 4.9.15E and then 4.9.7D 2B2, basically to digitize a nonconforming sign. This is located at 3896 Lamar Avenue. It is in existing commercial mixed-use 3 zone. There is a pre-existing BOA case from 1971, which did allow for the hotel that is there on the site to be 4 stories, where normally you would only have been allowed to be 3 stories. If we scroll to page 6, which is the zoning map, again, just wanted to show what was happening here. This big red star is exactly where the sign is located, so it is located on the Lamar frontage. There is some multifamily, as you can kind of see at the very east, the very right of the image, but predominantly it's EMP, some commercial mixed-use zoning, all the way around. Pages 9 through 11 show some site photos that you may see on your staff report. That's the existing sign as it stands. And then page 13, which our colleague had popped up, which also shows on here, is what the new sign will show. This is what the requested sign will show. So if you go then down to page 15, I just have my conclusions, which kind of spells everything out. So really to just begin, the nonconformity of the sign was for the height of, for the sign itself. According to the current code, the detached sign could only be 50 feet in height, whereas this one stands at 55 feet in height, so it is 5 feet over the regulation. The second variance that they're asking for is for the proposed change to increase the square footage of the sign from 300 square feet to 465 square feet. So they would be 165 square feet over what the code calls for. Like I said, the sign is for a hotel that's been there since 1972. The main request is just to add the message board to the sign to allow for quicker broadcast specials for the hotel. The other messages would just be backlit on the sign. And again, it's on Lamar, so it's and Getwell Road, so it's 2 very busy road frontages. The sign is already set back 50 feet from the road. It will stay exactly where it is. So staff does feel that the granting of the variance is justified. As Josh spoke earlier, I had a colleague, Burke Renner, mention to me this morning about adding a condition for landscaping. So that is a possible condition that we can definitely discuss. I actually hadn't even had time to mention that with the applicant this morning. So there are 3 conditions that the applicant was okay with, and there was a 4th that was to be added this morning, again for landscaping where the sign stands. So with all that to be said, I'm done with my portion of the presentation. I am certainly around for any questions that you have.
Okay, Mr. Skinner, what if we added something for landscaping? Is there like a particular thing you want there? Like, what are you looking for?
So, yes, I received it very late. It's not up on the screen. I do apologize. Burke had sent a concept for what he was looking for. And the best way that I could describe that was really to have more shrubbery in the parking, or the islands. So really the sign stands, and then there's one to sort of the right of the picture that's on the screen right now, was just to add some low-lying bushes and shrubs. He understood that obviously the sign, with the request the way that it is meant to be broadcasted a little bit easier, and has a lot of road frontage, so you wouldn't want to have anything too tall to stand in the way of the sign. That was for the main landscaping. The condition really was just to have the sign be applicable to all of the standards of 4.9.6 of the UDC, which does include applicable landscaping for the said sign.
Okay, so just be landscaping pursuant to the UDC.
Yes, sir.
Code.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Skinner?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. Why do they want to increase the sign from 300 and something to 400 and something square feet? Is that what I heard? Why do they need a sign of that? That's a big sign.
It is. So they
it's
will
not
have.
A billboard, but it's close.
Right.
So
yeah, no, you're okay. I did not mean to interrupt. So most of the sign will be taken up by the LED display. They wanted to add the 2 sort of messages underneath, because there is that separate event hall. I was speaking about this morning with Burke, but there is like a separate, I believe, occupancy for there was a permit that was pulled for the event hall, and then I guess there is some other parking that's around, so they wanted to add those separate messages on there. But I understand it is, yes, 165 feet over what the code, calls for in that district for the sign.
Well, the thing about the sign ordinance is if you begin to constantly vary from it, it's like the exception becomes the rule. And after a while, none of the signs comply. And so I guess we're going to be in that situation again of we need 5 votes, but yeah, I'm just not crazy about making us sign this large, unless there's a really important reason for it. And I hadn't heard that, put it that way. Maybe we should hold it.
Okay, I have questions for the applicant. Are there any questions for Mr. Skinner? I'm sorry, yes. All right, hearing none, we're going to move on to hear the applicant. Knowing they need all 5 votes. Who do we have on the line with us, Mr. Penzis?
The applicant himself.
Okay, so
Hello?
that is...
Yes, my name is Abdel. I don't know, you have the name misspelled or something, but my name is Abdel Karim Taha from City Signs.
Gotcha. Okay. Do you can you give your address as well?
My address or the hotel, the motel?
Your address, just for the record.
3191 North Watkins Street, Memphis, Tennessee 38127.
Okay. And do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Okay. All right. You have 10 minutes.
Okay. I replaced the face for that same motel before the new owners bought it. There's actually more than 300 square feet existing already. The top, there's a big arc that says truck parking and the phone number. That is probably around 20 feet by 5-6 feet. That's gonna be removed. Basically, in the design, we're gonna reface the top sign, put a digital sign under it, and a box. A box, basically, the name and the motel itself. When they have the rates, basically, they're gonna have it on the digital sign and the box. They actually have everything pre-existing. They have everything already installed. The only thing that we'll be adding is the digital sign. They actually have an extra box sign on the bottom that is not considered from it. So I'm probably think it's actually more than 300 square feet. But that's what we're doing, is basically putting the digital sign, when they run specials or when they have different rates or something like that. So that's one of the main things. And the box under it is half the size, but we're basically making it bigger. And that's about it on that sign. And I heard something about landscaping they do have, but maybe if it needs more, yeah, that's fine. I can tell the owner of the property, and that's a simple thing.
Okay, now let me ask you a question real quick. So do you plan, on the picture that's up on our screen right now, it has the real value in section, that's the lower section. Is that planning to stay in addition to the top part?
That's going to be removed.
Okay, so we'll get rid of that, just have the top part. So really,
yeah, the top part.
I'm looking at hey, Mr. Skinner, can you get a good picture of the old sign up there, like maybe page 9 of the staff report? It seems to me we're getting rid of the top semicircle, and then we have the 2 pieces that were already there, and then there's just there's a part that, okay, maybe it's just blacked in one of them. That one right there is the, can you see that, Mr. Taha?
I can't see anything. I don't know where you guys are at. I'm only on the phone. I don't know if I...
Okay, you're not on. Okay, I guess the question is, right now, when I look at the sign, I'm seeing kind of the orangey colored part. There's a semicircle and then a wider rectangle.
Yeah, the wider rectangle with... Sorry, go ahead.
And there's already a white sign directly attached to that. Is that correct? And that's where the LED is going to go?
Yes, it's basically we're refacing the bottom part and including a box sign with digital lights and what they want on the sign.
Okay. So all in all, it appears to me the sign is actually getting, if we remove that bottom square and the top semicircle, besides the fact you're stretching there's a little square in the bottom that'll widen out, it almost seems like it might be getting smaller than what's actually there taking up space now. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
It seems about I didn't get the exact measurement of that arc, but it's
Sure.
probably around like 20 feet by 7 or 8 feet.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Are there, do you have any other comments? Are there any questions for Mr. Taha?
Oh, me?
No, well, if you have anything to say, feel free. I'm also asking the board if they have any questions for you.
Oh, no, not at all. I just wanted to put that in mind that it does have an already arc on top that has square footage that wasn't included in it. The refacing, basically, we're refacing the top part and putting also a new box under the digital sign, and that's it.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions by the board? Okay, hearing none, I assume. And Jeffrey, do we have anybody else on the phone for the applicant or opposition?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Then with that, I assume you guys are ready to discuss. So would somebody give us a motion to approve BOA 2021-0006 or 006, sorry, as conditioned by staff with the additional condition that was made that the landscape will be pursuant to what's required in the UDC.
John Jackson, so moved.
All right, is there a second?
JT, second.
All right, we got moved and seconded. Do y'all have any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman, John Jackson.
Yes, sir.
You know, I'm in agreement with Ms. Baker on this. How much sign do we need? I mean, really? That thing is 55 feet tall. I mean, you know, there's been a concerted effort by the city of Memphis, I'm sure, to clean up the Lamar Avenue corridor. And it's been a slow process, but, you know, there are some changes there for the better. And although this is a, you know, bright, new, shiny sign, you know, signage is cluttered to a certain degree, especially when it's out of scale, out of proportion, and a lot of it. And to me, this is just counterproductive to what's trying to take place to clean up the Lamar Avenue corridor. And granted, it's a transportation corridor. It's a state route. Many, many trucks go up and down it. But I just don't think you need that big a sign for that large a building. You know? I mean, you can't miss that building. It's just not missable from either direction. Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with Ms. Baker on this one, for sure.
Okay, let me ask some questions. What about just in general, having a digital area of the sign, but maintaining, like, you know, whatever the code allows, the 300 square feet? So the question is, could we allow I'm not even trying to say it, make the sign digital, but make them lower the size of the sign by maybe removing part of that bottom thing to get it back to 300 feet. Is that offensive to the board?
This is Carson. I like that idea.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, ma'am.
I want to ask you, is it too late for me to ask the staff a question?
No, go ahead.
Okay. Is this inside or outside of the recent downzoning that you did along Lamar Avenue? Was this a part of it, or is it further out?
Mr. Lucas, I can take that one.
Please.
Ms. Baker, the downzoning stopped at I-240. So in other words, the area between Bellevue down, yes, this was unaffected by that.
Well, once again, if we don't ever just say, if you want to make this change to a sign, then you've got to bring it into compliance. If we never say that, then nothing will ever change. And I know that the new general plan 3.0, a lot of discussion about clutter along our major roads and getting more control over that, so that to improve the appearance of our main streets that we all drive on. And I know this is further out, mostly a truck route and all that, but still, if we never say, if you want to make a change, then you have to bring into conformance, then it'll never be done. Everything that's the way it is now will stay the way it is. And so that's just how I feel about this particular case. If he brought it all into conformance, I'd be fine. But then he wouldn't necessarily need to come to us, of course.
That's true. It'd definitely make our lives easier, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just...
So here's what I would suggest we do. Why don't we vote on each variance individually and see where the chips fall, or what we could do is I would offer the ability for the applicant to talk with staff and maybe come up with a smaller design for us or something else, if they wanted to hold it for a month, or they can just see what we vote. And so, Mr.
Well,
Taha,
the thing I like.
Go ahead.
The thing I like about holding it for a month is, I don't want to be unfair to somebody, and we don't have all our members present, and it makes them have to get just a larger percentage of the group. And so, I certainly would not object to a hold, so that to make sure the fairness of the decision.
No, absolutely. If there's no objection from the board, I'm going to talk to Mr. Taha again, if that's okay. And hearing none, Mr. Taha, I guess what we're saying is, the way this case is now and the way the board is talking, this isn't going to be approved like it is. We can look at each issue separately, maybe get you some LED, or you can talk to staff and maybe come up with some better ideas for next month. And we'll also have more members that might be more amenable. Right now, it doesn't take much to lose when you have to have 5 votes, is I guess what I'm saying. So how would you want us to proceed?
Okay, I have the main thing that I was asked. Okay, so do you consider both faces as a square feet, or do you consider just the one face as a square footage? Because basically one face is 6 foot by 30 feet. Okay, so that's one face. That's one face, which is the top part where it has the name of the hotel. Is that considered one as a square footage, or do you double it because it's double face?
It's not double, but we're adding the top part, the LED, and the part beneath it, which at least my drawing here shows that being a total 15 feet by 31 feet roughly for 465 on each side.
Okay. And I'm guessing it probably is, because the top part, I don't know if it's in the system that it is actually considered, because like I said, it's probably around 20 feet by 7 or 8 feet. I did not do the measurements for that one because it's not needed and they want to remove it. And there is also a sign on the bottom. Why they wanted to, the owners are actually trying to expand the Memphis, and they have probably about 10 different hotels in the Atlanta area, and they're trying to expand here. And they say they want to attract, better customers, better everything, trying to better the neighborhood. Want to do that by, if they have a digital sign where they have specials, or they're trying to attract the customers. And they just, if anyone is opposed to that, I mean, what we can do, they come in 10-foot parts, the digital signs, and they get connected to each other. It's a whole thing. But if it does get approved, maybe I can actually make it 10 foot smaller. And the reason I'm actually covering on the sides of the digital sign is to make it look a lot nicer and presentable and everything. Some people just put the digital signs and they leave, but no, they want everything professional, everything looking good. So, and that's what we're trying to provide, to make it look better for the neighborhood and everything around it. So if they're wanting to, we can actually make it 10 foot smaller and go from there. So.
Are you talking about 10 foot shorter up to down, or
shorter.
Or side to side?
No, the width.
But
yeah,
we'd still have the edges of the poles that hold it all up would still be wide, right?
The poles are already there. Basically,
right.
We're just going to cover, like if we were to center it in the middle, it won't be, we'll just cover the sides to make it look better. But other than that, we can make the digital sign smaller. But considering it's about 55 feet in the air, it does not look as much. Like billboards and all that, those are like 40 and 50 feet by 15 and 20 feet, but they look smaller in person. And when you raise the sign up, it doesn't look as big as it is in front of you.
Right.
When we go up, everything looks smaller down. And that was one of the reasons that because they're experienced with that kind of stuff, and they know the owners, and that's what they wanted. I tried to get them to get smaller, but whatever the customer wants, I try to do as much.
Yeah.
I told them it's going to need a variance, all of that, and we've been kind of on hold for 3 months because it was missing a piece of paper last month that was already provided. But that's what we're trying our best, because they're losing revenue and they're losing money because they have a good reputation.
Sure. Okay. Well,
Mr. Chairman, may I interrupt you a minute?
Yes, please.
Mr. Chairman, John Jackson, I'm going to vote no, even if you reduce the size of that sign. So I guess why I'm saying that is, hopefully the representative will see that it's not going to pass, even if he does reduce it. And it might be better to put it on hold, go back and negotiate and have a conversation with the owners, and the owners talk with OPD relative to what needs to take place.
Right. Okay. That makes sense. So, Mr. Taha, basically, I don't think we have the votes to pass it today, but I think that we can give you a hold so you don't have to pay another fee, come back and try to with another plan, and you can come back with a site plan of what you're talking about so we can really kind of see it. And so you may not want to hold it, but I think we're probably going to vote to hold it.
Okay, quick question. So if we were to hold it, can we put the digital sign on hold and do the top and bottom part? Just to change, business names, or they affect,
So long as you fulfill what the sign code allows without a variance, you can do that. Isn't that correct, Josh?
That is correct. We did add some language a few years ago that says if your plastic face, let's just say if it's a cabinet sign, if your plastic face has been missing for over 1 year, you can no longer do what you just described. But that notwithstanding, you can take, Hotel A, replace that plastic, even if it's a non-conforming sign, and say Hotel B.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay. All right. So I'm going to go back to the board, and I'm going to see if someone will give us a motion which would replace our prior motion to hold this case for until the next meeting.
So moved, Mr.
John
Chairman.
Jackson, I propose that we put a 30-day hold on this for the next meeting.
Okay, and then Mary, can I
Second.
take yours as a second? Okay, perfect.
Second,
Is,
yes.
is there any discussion further? Hearing none, I assume you're ready to vote. We'll do a voice vote on this one. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, this case has been held until the April meeting. Mr. Whitehead, will you call our next case for us?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. And of course, on that last case, another option would be, and it may prove to be less difficult than a hold for the applicant, is to probably reduce the sign not that significantly to bring it into compliance. So just another idea for the applicant.
Okay.
That brings us to number 4, which is agenda item number 4, BOA 2021-0013, located at 651 North McLean. The appellant is the Valentine Evergreen Community Association, represented by Lily Gilkey. The use district is the CMU1 Commercial Mixed Use District, and the request is an appeal of an administrative decision finding that a proposed tobacco sales establishment is not a vapor shop.
Okay, I assume the applicant and opposition are present. We got Mr. Skinner again. Do you mind giving us a quick rundown of where we are on this?
Yes, sir, absolutely. This is Lucas Skinner again. This is BOA 21-0013, and as Josh said, this is an appeal of an administrative decision finding a smoke shop is not a vapor shop, and this is located at 651 North McLean. Next slide, please. Here we have the zoning map. This is in CMU1 zoning, and this particular parcel is the only CMU parcel in this whole area, as you can see from the map. So everything else is residential zoning. So just kind of keep that in mind. Next slide, please. Here are 2 site photos. The one on the top sort of left with the yellow arrow is showing where the business is. Again, this is sort of a commercial little strip right here on the corner. The other photo shows, you will most likely see this again, and this will be discussed a lot, the proximity of the business sort of in view if you're looking from that corner to the Snowden School. Next slide, please. I just wanted to add this for everyone listening. So this is the definition for a vapor shop. According to the UDC, so any retail establishment where more than 50% of monthly sales are comprised of the selling of electronic cigarettes, a device containing nicotine-based liquid that is vaporized and inhaled. Next slide, please. So that is going to lead us in to the use classification. So this comes from the permitted use table. I apologize, it's got a little small and a little blurry, but basically what is happening here is it was found over in construction enforcement when, permits were being pulled, certificate of occupancy was being pulled, that when the owner was applying that this was not a vapor shop. So if you look at the top arrow, that puts this where that would be classified as for under retail sales and services, just under the normal list of retail sales and services. It's all retail, and in CMU1, that is the black box, which means that it's permitted by right. If the business is found to be a vapor shop, then you go down to the second arrow, which has its own classification for vapor shop, which requires a special use permit, which goes before the Land Use Control Board, and the applicable governing body, which here would be City Council, for CMU1. So next slide, please. This is, again, sort of an aerial, a much broader aerial. The arrow showing, again, where this corner property is, the star being Snowden School. I'm sure many of you board members know this area and have seen it. But again, I just wanted to show the broader context of where we are in the neighborhood. Next slide, please. This is a letter that was submitted with the application. It's VECA's responses to the appeal application, so their grounds for appeal and their findings. This will most likely be talked about a lot from the appellant and their speakers. I won't go through it too much right now, but I did just want to add a slide for it. So next slide, please. This is the brief, property owner letter from Mr. Usama Tarab. So this was to show, to prove that his business was not going to exceed the 50% limit for the vape element of the shop. So therefore, this was how it was classified as a normal retail sales, smoke shop. So in the normal retail sales category. Next slide, please. Due to a little technological error on my end, this particular letter of opposition did not make it in my staff report, so I wanted to make a slide for it. This is also probably one of the most comprehensive letters of opposition that was submitted. Again, similar pictures that you can see of the business, and then also kind of in the top picture where Snowden School is in relation to this. So next slide, please, and I promise this is my last slide. So just some conclusions here. Memphis 3.0 is not applicable since it's an appeal. Of course, since it's an appeal, our staff recommendation is to take whatever action that you, the board, deems advisable. And I wanted to just really point this out. There was a council moratorium passed on February 23rd for smoke shops, vapor shops, et cetera, with a lot of language pertaining to where they were in relation to schools and their health effects. So I wanted to point out that since the property owner received a certificate of occupancy on January 28th, that was, 3.5 weeks before the moratorium was passed. So therefore, the owner has vested rights, and so this case is not subject to that current council moratorium. I am done with my presentation. I also wanted to just let you know that Rick Meister with the Office of Construction Enforcement, who also dealt with the property owner, is on the line if you have any questions for him as well. So we are both available for any questions that you have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Skinner. Does the board have any questions for Mr. Skinner or staff or Mr. Meister?
Mr. Chairman, I do.
Yes, ma'am.
Mary Baker.
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
I don't know if this is for Mr. Skinner or for Mr. Meister, maybe either one. What permits were issued for this use? I mean, I assume that there were maybe electrical and, structural, and then a certificate of occupancy. What permits got issued for this? And I'm just going to give you the second part of my question. Can you show us a copy of the permits? I think it's important to see what was on the permits when they were filed.
Yeah, Mr. Meister, you might be a little more abreast of that, might be able to speak to that a little more.
Good afternoon, board. This is Rick Meister. I'm manager of plan review with the Division of Planning and Development. On this one specifically, my office reviews building plans and specifications specifically for building permits. A certificate of occupancy permit is one of those permit types that my office reviews and approves. This one did come in online, and so anybody could view it through our new online portal at Develop 901. However, given the circumstances, I'm not sure I could get a copy of that to you in this forum other than people going to the website and trying to bring it up that way.
Well, Mr. Meister, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I did go on. Is it the place that you call Permit Inquiry? I went to that site and put this address in there, and I did not get anything.
Yes, ma'am. To answer your question, there is two different relevant searches on our website. One is historical data that was before the launch of our new system on October 5th. So if you went to the permit inquiry link, you would be searching the old historic database, and you would not be searching any new permit since October 5th of 2019. And so since this one was issued in late January, you would have to go to the Develop 901 website in order to retrieve that information.
Is there anyone among the staff who can go on there right now and get that permit, so we can look at it? I think it's important that we be able to look at that permit or those permits just to see what was on them when they were filed. And if there was any kind of a plan attached or, right now we don't really have anything to look at.
So I don't know, is there anybody that can help with Mary's question?
This is Josh. I'm on Develop 901. I just had it, and now I pressed something bad. But we can, if there's other questions, we can roll around, and I think we could probably be able to show them on the screen. But I think the most relevant information with regard to this specific question is a process that Mr. Meister has developed that is really just kind of a questionnaire. Mr. Applicant, Mr. Permit Applicant, what is your expected sales from electronic cigarettes? And then he or she responds. Is that correct, Mr. Meister?
Yeah, to answer, I don't want to be a long-winded question, but to answer the specific type of permit type, a certificate of occupancy is required by the zoning code and also by the building code. Someone who's moving into a space cannot occupy a space unless they have that certificate of occupancy. So if you can imagine any vacant store that somebody wants to move in, they're required to come to our office. And in this specific permit type, we do a quick zoning check, which is just for the permitted use that Lucas went over, whether or not it is a permitted use. If it's permitted by right, we continue on forward. If it's not permitted by right, then of course we spin the applicant around to get the appropriate approvals. One of those things that we do on the building side is just simple life safety check. This is done in our office, where we look at historic records of what something was and when it's turning into be. And if we have legitimate concerns, then we would tell the applicant, hey, it doesn't seem appropriate that you're moving from this type of use to this one without doing work that requires a permit, and thus this permit type, the certificate of occupancy would not be appropriate to you. So specifically to Josh's point, usually, generally speaking, when something's permitted by right, the applicant would go into the permit and they would tell us what they believe their zoning used to be. This is by a series of drill down list, that same list that Lucas showed you in his slide presentation, where the applicant has to tell us what they are. Given that list that you saw, the applicant has the ability to select vape shop. He did not identify himself as a vape shop, but as a tobacco shop for retail sales, otherwise on that list known as the all others not listed below. And so sometimes when we know that something can be interpreted different ways, then we also ask something specifically for the applicant to quantify that. So that is the letter that the applicant provided that you can see in that staff report. I don't remember offhand which page that's on. And so always the caveat to being part of our CO is then obviously sending out a large group of inspectors, ones for different disciplines, including other agencies and organizations. So if they then determined in that inspection process that something was awry or amiss, then they would not approve the certificate of occupancy to be issued and would spin the applicant around at that point in time. So to give a quick example, if somebody said that they were a restaurant and we went out to take a look at them and they were a daycare, we would let them know during that inspection process that, hey, you're not who you said you were, and thus you need to kind of about face and go back through the process. And that kind of explains this specific permit process that maybe help answer some of the questions that you would see or find on the permit type itself, and maybe also our processes as it goes to what Josh was bringing up as far as questions.
And now they are on our YouTube screen. The three there's a mechanical permit, an electrical permit, and then of course the certificate of occupancy.
Yes, and you'll see.
And that, excuse me, I'm sorry, but that certificate of occupancy, that is the document that your planner says was approved before before the council voted on it? I
Yeah,
can't
it looks like it was
remember.
approved
What was that you said?
on January 12th, it looks like.
January
when it was approved.
28th. Can we see that? I can't see it. Can you all see the permit? I can't see it. All I see is the list.
I can see the list and I can see the date. It looks like it was approved, which is 1/12/21.
Can you click on that and bring up the permit so we can see it? I just like to see the permit. I mean, I've seen a number of these. Maybe they're different now.
All right, so I see it. Can somebody pull up the date that it was issued on the permit itself? All right, well, we're looking for that. I got a question for staff. Let's assume that we're being, it was done before the moratorium, which great to see, but I assume that staff is telling us what actually happened there. Our role here is to figure out, if we can, is it a vape shop or is it a tobacco shop? Is that correct?
Yes, Chairman, that is essentially correct.
And so we're doing that on a business. As any business, it's not done anything yet. We just have their word for what they're going to do. Correct?
Yes, sir, that is correct.
Okay. That's what I thought. I was just making sure. It's one of the things we're not put in the best position to know. It's not like we can go in there and see what they're doing. We just have to, they have a business plan, and that's what we have to go on a little bit. But I see y'all are zooming in on this.
Mr. Chairman, John Jackson.
Yes, sir, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I don't think we're qualified to interpret that at this time.
It sure doesn't seem like it.
I think that's a stretch beyond where the board should really stretch. I mean, the question was asked by code enforcement, what is the business going to be? He was granted permit based on what he said it was going to be. And until it's proved different, I don't think we as a board can second guess that.
I have no disagreement with that, but I guess we still need to hear the rest of, we're kind of going on, I don't really know how we can decide this other than well, that's what he said. He doesn't start a business. Like if somebody opened a bar and said it was a bar and it ended up becoming a strip club, there was no way to know when he applied for a bar. We don't know I don't know how we can answer that question other than if he changes his business later, he would not be in compliance with his use there. I understand that. Well, we'll listen to the opposition or the appellant on this, how we don't want even a smoke shop, but I think he's allowed to do it by right. And so our hands seem kind of tied to me. Well, how about this? While we're looking for those dates, just to make sure for Ms. Baker, why don't we hear from the appellant?
Yes, sir. I think that's a good idea.
So, Mr. Penzis, I think, do we have Mr. Councilman Warren on the line with us today?
He was here earlier, but he's not here right now.
We ran him off. Okay.
I did.
Go ahead.
I unmuted the appellant Lily Gilkey.
Okay, Ms. Gilkey, can you hear us and speak to us?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Hey, can you give your name and address for the record real quick, and I'll swear you in.
Lily Gilkey, 918 Stonewall Street.
Okay, and do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, and real quick before we start, Mr. Penzis, how many people do we have on hold to talk?
On the side of the appellant, there are 1, 2, 3.
Okay, all right, Ms. Gilkey, I just wanted you to know how many other people were there. Y'all may have already discussed how y'all wanted to do this, but we have 10 total minutes, okay?
Yes, sir.
All right, go ahead, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you for allowing me to speak. Since the opening of the smoke, I'm going to call it Smoke Vape Shop because really at this point, we really don't know, at the 651 North McLean. After I saw this opening, I decided to browse other quick stops in the neighborhood. And for one, Mr. Tarrant called me when he got the appealing letter, and he reminded me that other stores in the neighborhood sold smoking paraphernalia. So I went about checking myself, and I was appalled at all the various cigs and especially non-packaged ready rolls right there on counters in different flavors and aromas, all out in plain view. So I to research to find some information about this growing problem, especially targeting low and moderate income neighborhoods. One presentation that caught my eye was to the American Cancer Research Center, seeking a need for stronger licensing requirements for smoke vape shops, as well as a need for federal and state level regulations of this industry. Our youth are already highly targeted by tobacco and vaping companies with electronic nicotine delivery systems, especially e-cigs and such, which is a highly addictive nicotine. We're dealing with a market of fruit and candy-flavored poison that is directed to our youth. And what better place to start than in front of a junior high school where the most vulnerable age group can be tempted on a daily basis? Young people who are already vulnerable due to peer pressure and other societal issues. I feel my research confirmed that this location was intentional. At Snowden, over 60% of the students at Snowden are considered economically and disadvantaged, and over 66% Black and other minorities. In closing, I would like to summarize a conversation I had with my five grandsons about this store opening in front of Snowden Junior High, a school where their dad and uncle attended. The 21-year-old and 19-year-old college students stated they definitely believed the students were being targeted. They viewed it as an opportunity even if you did not smoke. The 15 and 17-year-old high school students said the peer pressure would definitely be a problem in their cases. The 13-year-old took it to a whole new level. Most kids his age would see it as a cool and grown-up thing to do. And if the older kids could get away with it, so could the younger one. And his exact words were, I know some dudes would be all up in there, signs and posting or whatever, it wouldn't matter. So as a neighborhood leader, I feel it's my civic duty to try to protect the welfare of young people in our neighborhood. And in this case, appealing an opening of a smoke vape shop in front of our schools. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Gilkey. Are there any questions for Ms. Gilkey? All right, hearing none. Mr. Penzis, will you move on to our next opposition?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Councilman Warren has rejoined the call.
Oh, very good. Councilman Warren, how are you doing today?
Doing well. How are you?
Doing really good. Mr. Whitehead, do I need to swear in the councilman, or is he speaking on behalf of the council or something like that? Just want to make sure I do it correctly.
You and I disagree on whether we swear in attorneys. I think attorneys, councilmen, and everybody should be sworn in. But
well, we're going to do that, and we'll blame it on you
okay.
if you get mad. Councilman Warren, can you go ahead and give your just state your name and your address for the record?
Dr. Jeffrey Warren, 215 Buena Vista Place, Memphis, Tennessee, 38112.
Okay, and do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Okay, go ahead, sir. And we have 6:45 left of our 10 minutes.
Yes, I'll make this relatively quick. Once the city council understood that there was going to be a tobacco and a vape shop this close to a middle and elementary school, they felt that we had problems with our regulations that we needed to fix. And I went and investigated with our administration and asked what could possibly be done about making sure we do not put these types of, I guess, attractive nuisances right next to elementary and middle schools. So we have asked for a moratorium, and I certainly would hope that this particular business can be included in that moratorium because the nidus of this particular understanding that we have a lacking in our regulations came from putting a vape shop next to a middle school. There are plenty of other places in the city that you can put that and not be right next to an elementary school and a middle school, and I would hope that the board sees it that way. Thank you very much.
All right, are there any questions for Councilman Warren? I have one, Councilman Warren. Do you remember, I think Mr. Skinner may have said, what was the date when the moratorium passed?
I do not know that off the top of my head.
Okay. Mr. Skinner, do you remember what date that was? Mr. Skinner, we'll come back to that with Mr. Skinner. Are there any other questions for Councilman
maybe
Warren?
2 or 3 meetings. It was 2 or 3 meetings ago, so 4 to 6 weeks ago, maybe longer.
Okay.
But I mean, I have my research assistant who's on the line, and she could probably let us know if she can look that up and maybe interject or text Mr. Whitehead.
Mr. Councilman, it was February 23rd. I'm so sorry. It's February 23rd. I apologize.
That's fine. Okay. Perfect. Okay. All right. Are there any other questions for Councilman Warren? Hearing none. Mr. Penzis, thank you for joining us, Councilman.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. Appreciate your help.
Yeah. Absolutely. Mr. Penzis, who else do we have today?
Holly Fulkerson.
Okay. Ms. Fulkerson?
Hi, this is Holly Jansen Fulkerson. Yes, I can.
Hey, can you give us your address real quick?
Sure, 1677 Tutwiler.
Okay, and do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, go ahead, Ms. Fulkerson.
Okay, well, my name is Holly Fulkerson. Thank you for allowing me to speak today. I am a VECA board member and also obviously a VECA resident, and I live right down the street from the proposed location. It's kind of hard to follow Mrs. Gilkey and Councilman Warren, other than to just say I totally echo their sentiments, and I hope that the board can do whatever they can to prevent this shop from opening. It just seems like common sense that a tobacco shop or vape shop, smoke shop, whatever you want to call it, should not be allowed to be located so close to a school and also in our residential historic neighborhood. VECA really cares about its neighborhood, so much so that it's seeking local landmark status, and we don't want to see this shop. So I hope that the board will be able to make a decision to that effect. So thank you, and I yield the rest of my time.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Fulkerson. Are there any questions for Ms. Fulkerson before we let her go? All right, hearing none. Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Penzis, do we have one more?
We have 2 more. Bryce
Okay.
Ashby.
Okay, Mr. Ashby, can you give your name and address for the record, please?
Yes, sir. 1966 Lindale Avenue, Memphis, Tennessee, 38107.
Okay, and do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
Thank you. I appreciate, and I'll try to be as brief as I can. I've got 3 students at Snowden, who are my kids, obviously. 7th grader, a 4th grader, and a 2nd grader. My kids pass this corner every day on the way to school and the way home. I understand, and what I wanted to specifically address is the concern that the board has about how do you treat this appeal. The permit that was granted based solely on a bare bones letter saying that the shop wouldn't exceed sales of 50% of vape products. There was no business plan submitted that we've seen. No evidence of sales at other shops that would demonstrate a record where this type of shop sells less than 50% of vape products. No evidence other than a 2-page or a single page 2 or 3 sentence paragraph saying that that vape sales won't exceed that number. I think there's an onus that has to be placed on businesses when they're selling products that do pose a threat to the safety and well-being of the citizens of Shelby County, and specifically that pose a threat to the health and well-being of students of a school that's located just over 200 feet away. And I think the the board can require a reapplication process in which they submit more substantial documentation to support their application. And I think there's nothing in the the parameters of what the board has to follow that would not allow you to do that. There's universal opposition to this business, not only from the Snowden PTO, from Rhodes College, from neighborhood churches, from Becca, from numerous neighbors. And given the health risks that it potentially poses, and the lack of, frankly, comprehensive regulation of smoke and vape shops, in the code, I'd ask that the board vacate this decision and require reapplication.
Okay. Are there any questions for Mr. Ashby? Hearing none, thank you, Mr. Ashby, for joining us today.
Thank you.
Mr. Penzis, do you have someone else for us?
Yes, Michelle McCass. Oh, I can't say that. Michelle.
Hey, Michelle, do you mind saying your name and address for the record for us?
Sure, no problem. Michelle McKissick, 160 South Hollywood, Memphis, 38112.
Okay. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the true stuff you got?
I do.
All right. Thank you, Ms. McKissick. Go ahead and start.
All right. Thank you, commissioners, for your time today. As I said, my name is Michelle McKissick, and I am the school board representative on Shelby County School Board for Snowden School in that area. And I wanted to join in my friends and colleagues here in speaking out against this smoke shop coming into the area because, as you may not be aware, there are school districts across the country that have joined a class action lawsuit against one of the biggest manufacturers of e-cigarettes, Juul, because they are claiming that Juul is targeting minors in advertising campaigns, and they're downplaying the health risks associated with vaping. So this is a very real threat, and this is no accident that this potential smoke shop is so close to a school in a predominantly residential area. So I just really hope that everything that's been said by those who've spoken before me, that you take that to heart as you make your decisions on what to do about this, because we can't normalize this for children. And these are kids. Snowden's a very walkable neighborhood. A lot of the kids walk to school. They would walk past this business. So it's something that they would see day in and day out. And as you get older and into the middle school, and as it was mentioned earlier, that things that attract junior high / middle school students, it just would be introducing a very dangerous concept. So thank you so much for your time, and I hope you take all this into consideration. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ms. McKissick. Are there any questions for Ms. McKissick? All right. Hearing none. With that, Mr. Penzis, let's move on. That was our 10 minutes are up right then, actually. She about hit it right on the head. Let's move to our the owner here to talk.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. This is Usama Tarab. Can you all hear me?
We can. Can you give your address for the record?
Yes, sir. 8527 Shady Trail Cove, Cordova, Tennessee, 38018.
Okay. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the true stuff you got?
Yes, sir.
Okay, go ahead. And you got 10 minutes to talk about what's going on here.
First of all, I really appreciate you guys giving me the time to actually speak. So just to clarify everything, I'm going to emphasize something. This store is not a vape shop. It is a tobacco shop. It will never be a vape shop. My sales will never exceed, and let me tell you, will never exceed 30% of vape products. I understand that all parents are concerned about their kids and are concerned about the fact that the vape, or you consider a vape shop, it is not a vape shop. It is a tobacco shop, which only going to be carrying tobacco accessories, cigars, items that I will only be selling to folks over the age of 21 and older, there's going to be, and I will make sure, a big sign that's going to be against the window that's going to show 21 or older. Not even somebody who's younger the age of 21 can step a foot in that retail store. That store will only be over the age of 21. I understand that everyone in the community is assuming that my shop is going to be a vape shop. No. And also in regards to the point that Michelle had brought up, jewels and everything, I will not be carrying jewel products. I will not be carrying products that are trying to encourage the anyone under the age or minor. No, these items that I will be carrying in my store are cigar products, items over the age of 21, tobacco accessories, novelty merchandise, lighters, torch lighters, tobacco pipe. These are things that will not be for people under the age of 21. I feel hurt that the entire community, right away, they assumed. They didn't even give me a chance to come and talk to me, and it hurts. It's my first time joining in and doing a business that I was, especially during a COVID-19. I put in all my savings, everything, and I was very passionate to do it. I even have two daughters that I know, and I'm concerned about their health and all those things. And I know that about the whole the tobacco items do cause cancer and all those kind of things. Yes, I am aware, but I also want you guys to understand that I am not catered for people under the age of 21. That's illegal. And I just want to emphasize that my shop is not a vape shop. My shop is a tobacco shop. I'm willing to, even if you guys want to reassess me down the line and say, hey, we want to, after a year, I want to take a look at my sales book, I would be honored and I would be glad to do that, sir, because I have nothing to hide. But at least give me a chance. I am not even open. I have not even opened. An entire community assumes that I will be a vape shop. That is not right. By law, it's not right. And I feel that I don't even, I can't, there's a business, a tobacco shop, 7 minutes away from that school, but they're open. They're selling the items that you guys are saying that causes cancer and everything. And if you guys actually take a look at theirs, I'm sure they exceeds over 50%. Because I actually went in that shop, and that's why I told Lily to go and check it out. I told her if it was her, go and take a video, and you would see how many items of vape items that he has in that store. And he's 7 minutes away from that school, which really hurt. But that's all I have. I hope that the neighborhood can at least give me a chance to show them that I am not a vape store. That I will be putting out there. Showing that these items cannot be for anybody under the age of 21. I will be putting a sign also on top of the door that does state the warning of nicotine products and everything, that it's a warning, it causes cancer. I will be putting that above the entrance of my door, so everybody is aware that these items can only be used for people over the age of 21. And I'm not going to be putting signs of flyers to try to engage anyone. No, this store is for over the age of 21, and it's a tobacco store, tobacco accessories and novelty merchandise. I hope the board can consider and can give me a chance to at least open and at least give me a chance to see that I am just a tobacco store. That's all I have for today. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Are there any questions for our owner?
Mr. Chairman, John Jackson.
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead, John.
The applicant made a statement about the percentage of vape products he was going to sell in his presentation. My question is, what percentage did you say, sir?
It would not exceed over 30%, sir.
Now, correct me
by
if I'm
law,
wrong.
I cannot. Yes, sir.
No, go right ahead, sir. I'm sorry.
By law, it can, because last time when I spoke to Rick, he told me that by law you cannot be selling anything over 50. If you were selling over 50, then you'll be considered a vape store. I told Rick that my store would not even exceed 30. It would be like 15, 20. The items that I'll be carrying mostly will be items such as cigars, such as lighters, novelty merchandise, hats, candles, incense, and those kind of things.
Okay. And you did say that you would be willing to allow a review of your sales receipts after the first year to determine what percentage of your product is vape and what is not. Was that correct?
Yes, of course. I don't mind because I have nothing to hide, sir.
Great. I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, I have a question on that. So when we talk about this, just so I'm sure, the sales of vape cannot be more than 50%, not the amount of product in the store. Is that correct, Josh?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah, sorry. When we talk about this 50% threshold you need to be under to not be considered a vape shop, that is based on sales, not based on the amount of, product or shelf space. Is that accurate?
Correct. Monthly sales is what the definition says.
So theoretically, you could only sell one vape product, but it could be 95% of your sales, even if you have a room full of everything. It really matters what goes out the door being paid for.
Correct.
Okay. Any other questions for the owner? All right, and Josh, on this, do we need to go back to anybody as far as rebuttal?
Yes, sir. Since this is an appeal, the moving party, if you will, are the appellants. So then a representative of the appellants would be given a 2-minute rebuttal period.
Right, and just to make sure there's no one here for the owner other than him, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. All right, Mr. Pensis, do we have anybody online for this 2 minutes, possibly?
Lily Gilkey.
Ms. Gilkey, are you still with us?
Yes, sir, I'm still here.
Do you want to say anything in rebuttal or just let your statement stand?
Well, yeah, basically that. My another point is, it's 30% is still vape. Whether it's 5% or 10%, it's still vaping products. So, and it is still a smoke shop. And another concern is monitoring. Who monitors where the kids are in and out? You see it all the time. Kids buying products. It doesn't matter about signs. We know that. We know kids have access to these supplies anyway. We know that. So he may have good intentions, but it does not stop a child from gaining access to his store.
Okay. Any other comments or questions from the board for Ms. Gilkey? All right, thank you, ma'am. And Jeffrey, we have a minute left. Do you think there's somebody else, or do you think we're good on? I don't want to take up somebody's time if they're wanting to say something, but.
Well, I believe Ms. Gilkey was the appellant's representative.
Okay, perfect. That makes sense. Okay, thank you, Ms. Gilkey.
Yes,
all right, so, Josh, I want to make sure I'm doing this right. What is the motion I'm looking for here for us to get to our discussion?
The motion would be for approval to approve the appeal.
So if we vote yes, then we say the city was wrong, correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right, so we always vote in the affirmative. So is there someone on the board that would give us a motion to approve the appeal of the city's determination?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, John Jackson.
Go ahead, sir.
I'm sorry. I didn't quite understand what Mr. Secretary said about the vote.
So
it's my understanding. Go ahead.
Go ahead. I was going to say that we're going to have a motion to approve the appeal. So if you want to deny the appeal and let the city's determination stand, it would be a no vote.
Thank
But
you.
the motion would be to approve the appeal.
Okay.
All right, would someone make that motion?
So moved, John Jackson.
All right, is there a second?
Second, Carson.
Okay, thank you, Carson. Let's discuss. I'll go first. I don't like this business. I'll just go on the record. I don't like there being a smoke shop. I'm not a big fan of smoke shops in general, and I'm not a fan of them being near schools. But I don't know that, based on how they went, I don't know how to tell that he's not going to be a vape shop other than what he says. That's what businesses do, is they tell you what they're going to do, and then they do it. To preemptively say he's going to do something that he's not allowed to do when he's allowed to do what he's saying, I don't know if I can tell the city that they made a bad determination here. So while I don't like this case, this is probably my least favorite case we've ever had, to consider a use that I don't like, but I think my hands are tied on going with what the city said based on the code they had to deal with. And so I think John was mentioning the same thing. He may have changed his mind. I'd love to hear what y'all have to say about that.
Chairman John Jackson?
Yes, sir.
I haven't changed my mind. I agree. I don't like the fact that it's a smoke shop or a vape shop that close to a school. But I can't say that the decision made by Memphis and Shelby County was wrong, because we have no proof that it was wrong. I mean, the application asked, what is it going to be? The applicant put down what it is. It is allowable. How do you say somebody's wrong before they're wrong?
Right.
And I think that's a legal issue that we would be getting into, to be very honest with you. Now, as if we want to condition it for the fact that if the sales exceed it, then, this is automatically revoked. I think we could condition it that way, and I don't think we would be open liable for that.
Right.
But do it on the front end, I think it would be a mistake on the part of the board.
Right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
This is Joy Block. If we do condition it, though, where are the checks and balances? Like, who checked it? Like, how do we know it's over 30%? Like, I mean, that really requires a deep dive into inventory and sales. So who does that? Even if we do condition it, conditioning it makes sense theoretically, but then the follow-up is what?
Mr. Whitehead,
Chairman, may I?
Yes, I wanted you to.
Well, I was envisioning how this could go down, and I think we have utilized sunset provisions pretty well for the last few years. So what the board could do is say, well, we approve the appeal, but we will allow the business to open. So it's a kind of a nuanced approach. So he can produce sales records for the next X months, and then he comes back in 3, 6, 9 months to show that percentage. If he meets it, then the appeal goes away. If he doesn't meet it, then y'all could order him to file a special use permit.
Okay.
Or so I would order him.
Sure. Yeah, you would order him.
Chairman John Jackson, I like that idea.
Well,
yeah.
I do too, Mr. Chairman. Mary Baker.
Yes, ma'am.
I really don't like this application, as you might expect. But I like Josh's suggestion because, it troubles me that we just don't know. You know what I mean? And so having some way to test it would be really the only way I could vote for this, or not vote to approve the appeal.
Okay.
And for the board's edification, just mainly for the audience's edification, this may be my last opportunity to get on a soapbox before y'all vote. I am working in concert with the city council and the county commission on language to deal with this, to tighten it up, because quite frankly, it was based upon the adult business ordinance, this percent of sales, and I think a board member, maybe it was you, Mr. Chairman, said, we don't know an adult business is an adult business until after it's there, and maybe that's why we wrote the adult business ordinance in such a way that it was based upon monthly sales, because 9 times out of 10, it was somebody getting in trouble who was already open, and then we have an opportunity to order their sales receipts. Going forward, and Mr. Skinner made a point about the Vested Rights Act of Tennessee, this would be going forward and not applying necessarily to this site, but to all future potential smoke shops, be they vape shops or head shops or just regular tobacco smoke shops. We are developing language specifically related to distances to schools and completely remove the monthly sales provision. So, a general tobacco shop is a general tobacco shop, and if they open after telling Rick Meister and his team a lie, well, then we'll cite them. But that's how we deal with most uses, right, instead of this monthly sales business. So I did want to just have an opportunity to say we're fixing the problem, but 651 North McLean may not feel that fix. Although it would be a non-conforming use that would be locked and frozen forever.
Okay. So here's what I would suggest to the board. I'll give you what I'd like to see here, and then I'll make an amendment, I guess, to what I want to do right now, and we can discuss it. I think we have them back. They need to come back and see us 3 months after they open their doors. So I don't want to say 3 months from now. It could be that he's not open for a month. So I don't want to be too soon. I want to have 3 full months of sales receipts. I want them laid out in a way that I can tell what's tobacco and what's vape. I don't even know what that looks like, but it needs to be discernible to us and not just a chart that says X tobacco, X for vape. Like, it needs to have detail to it. At that point, I think that I'd want them to provide us, let's say everything looked good to us then, it's under the 50% rule, or then I think that we would say, well, now every year you need to provide something to someone. I don't know if it's Josh or if it's code enforcement, or you get your permit taken. But I don't want to talk about that time yet. I think we kick it for 3 months just based on that is kind of my thought. What do y'all think about something like that?
This is Carson. I'm good with that.
Okay.
It's Jackson. I'm the same. I'm good with it.
Okay, so just hearing those, I say that, now Josh, let me ask you this. Our motion is to approve the appeal. So to disallow that, which I think is where we're leaning, is with a no vote, but how do we add a condition at the same time if we're going to vote no?
Well, I think we would a yes vote would in a way overturn the interpretation, but subject to the following condition. So the condition almost swallows up that first statement about the interpretation. And I don't know if I can speak for Mr. Meister, but I can certainly speak for myself. We don't take any of these overturnings or appeals personally, so particularly with a condition that swallows up the appeal. So it would be approving the appeal subject to the following condition, the applicant may open, but after 3 months after opening shall return to the Board of Adjustment with monthly sales receipts reflecting the percentage of sales that are constitute of tobacco and vapor and electronic cigarettes. Little Arabic 1 before tobacco and little Arabic 2 in front of vapor and electronic cigarettes, because those would be grouped together that would constitute the percentage we're looking for.
All right. So with that amendment that I think everyone is okay with, we would then vote yes. Correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is there any discussion on that amendment to the motion? All right. Hearing none, I assume you're ready to vote. Mr. Whitehead, will you give us a roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Ms. Gerlach. Mr. Malazri.
Yes.
Ms. Doss.
Yes.
Vice Chair Savage Towns. Mr. Jackson.
Yes.
Ms. Baker.
Yes.
Mr. Claybrook.
Yes.
And Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
That is 6 ayes.
Okay, so we'll see the applicant in 3 months from when he starts. I'm going to tell the appellants here, I totally understand your position. I think everybody on the board does. No one likes this. We think our hands are tied based on what the zoning was. It's not like we're granting a variance. So hopefully this store will do what it's supposed to, and hopefully we don't have to ever hear a case like this again if we can get some different legislation in process. Mr. Whitehead, could you call our last case for us?
Our last case is agenda item number 15. That's docket BOA 2021-27, located at 837 Florida. The applicant is Aman Devji, represented by Niraj Kumar. The use district is the Commercial Gateway District, and the requests are from variances from paragraphs 443B1, 727G1, and 729E1 related to a convenience store with gas pumps.
Okay, I'm assuming we got Mr. Skinner again. I haven't looked at it yet.
Yes, sir.
Hey, Mr. Skinner, do you mind giving us a brief staff report on this? I do remember hearing this 2 years ago. So.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Yeah, I can keep it pretty brief for you. So this is BOA 21-27, again at 837 Florida, and the variances are, there we go, for a convenience store with gas pumps. Next slide, please. So this is the land use map, just to show you what's kind of going on in the area. There are some multifamily uses to the east and a little further to the north, up in the Bluffview zoning district. There is an existing sort of warehouse structure that is on the lot that you can kind of see through the purple image there. Next slide, please. On that note, here are some site photos. Again, there's the existing structure there to the left. This is kind of right at the intersection there at Florida, and then this photo to the right is from Florida Street, again looking dead ahead at the existing structure. So it is a corner lot. Next slide, please. Here's the site plan. This is very similar to the site plan that was seen 2 years ago. There is an additional 5 feet of streetscape that was added, so it is a 15-foot wide streetscape in this request that you are seeing today. Next slide, please. Here are some elevations of the C-store itself, as well as the canopy for the station. So just you can see what the proposed store will look like, as well as the landscaping, streetscape there to the bottom. And then, yes, conclusions. Memphis 3.0 was not applicable, as this was sort of originally approved before the 3.0 plan, as well as the other variances are not spoken with 3.0. Staff is recommending approval with conditions. And then again, this was previously approved very similarly in 2019-005. And similar to the case before, this applicant does have vested rights according to the Vested Rights Act, and therefore this is not subject to the very recently passed moratorium by council on all new gas stations. I am done with my portion of the presentation. I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Skinner. Are there any questions for Mr. Skinner at this point?
Mr. Chairman, Yes,
ma'am.
Mary Baker.
Go for
Mr.
it.
Skinner, on that 2019 case that you were talking about, that had been approved previously, I assume that there was a notice of disposition with that approved site plan attached to it, and that was forwarded to code enforcement. Do you have that notice of disposition and the site plan that was attached to it?
Yes, I do believe. Where is?
That was forwarded to the code enforcement. Is that
Yes.
what you're saying?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, it was.
And it had-
Yes, ma'am.
had the
Don
site
Jones worked
plan
on the
attached to
case.
it.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. 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 Okay. But you don't have a copy of it. With you.
I thought I have the notice of disposition. So I guess I have it on pages 26 through 28 of my report. He did not include the site plan at the time because they needed to resubmit for some adjustments that were made at the meeting. However, it did include the same variances that it was asked for, as well as the approved conditions. But it did include some next. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Didn't have the site plan attached to it.
No, ma'am. Yeah,
Did not
so this
have
was correct. Yes, ma'am. He just included some next steps for them to submit the new for the site plan that needed to show a few things that were said at the meeting.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, are there any other questions for Mr. Skinner? All right, hearing none right now, we'll move on to the applicant. Is it Mr. Kumar that's with us, Mr. Penzis?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, hey, Mr. Kumar, could you give your full name and address for the record for us?
Okay, my name is Niraj Kumar. My address is 9000 Forest Hill, Arraign Cove, Germantown, Tennessee, 38139.
Okay, very good. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
All right, go ahead, sir.
So I do have a brief presentation. Thanks for letting me speak today. And I think Mr. Skinner has covered most of the points, but I'd like to go over this quick presentation just to show what happened since the project has been approved by Board of Adjustment in 2019. This is just a cover page. This is my company name is Design Group, and I'm architect here for licensed for here now 10 years, and the developer is Rand Management. Okay, so what happened is that 2019 we got the approval on the variance by Board of Adjustment, and then we applied for the building permit, we applied for the code approval, and ASPR, all of those things. We got approved in 2019 and the later part of 2019 around October. And then the developer was ready to start mobilizing the construction, but you all know what happened is that in March of 2020, when we have the pandemic, and after that everything changed. Financing becomes very, very difficult. It was hard to get good bid, labor problem, all of those things. So of course, this project went on the shelf. Then we started to get back to this project around December of last year. And when we applied, it's not the way, everybody's working right now. We have been slow in getting the approval because of, again, pandemic, nothing to complain. And by the time we had our second approval on all our building, mechanical, plumbing, electrical by code enforcement in December and January of 2021, we found out that, we have our initial approval from Board of Adjustment is expiring on January. So that's what happened. Things which were not in our control. I just wanted to show the timeline, what happened, and why we are here today to requesting for the next approval. Please go to the next slide. Next slide, please. Okay, so like I said, Rand Management, they are the developer. They have almost 30 to 35 stores in Memphis and surrounding areas. They are established C-store developer. And all his stores, you can see we have some slides later on. I mean, he believes in a quality construction. We use long-lasting materials like brick mostly. The stores are not only built good, they are maintained. And the one thing good about the developer is that he's very flexible and he always tries to work with the neighbors, always try to exceed the minimum code requirement. So here are the two slides, one on the left-hand side, which was the site plan, which shows what was approved in 2019. And on the right-hand side, this is our new site plan. It has been 2 years, so we look back and see, what we could do differently to make it much better. And so things we have done is that you can see the landscape strip on both the streets was only 10 feet, and there was only one row of landscaping. So we increased that to 15 feet just for the better aesthetics. And I know we are asking for the variance in that regard. So we exceeded from what we had approved on 2019. We also added a patio. We know now is the time of COVID. We all know it's going to, not going to be solved pretty soon. So outdoor seating is going to be there. So we added the patio. I mean, the other purpose for that is that also, if you have more outdoor activities, that makes the area look safe. So we did added that, and we added the bike rack. So all of these new additions, and we also make the building footprint a little bit smaller just to be in the scale. So our design is now much better than what we had in 2019, and we thought this is the important thing to do at this point. We have an apartment next door. I think it will be a good addition with the outdoor patio. They can come and sit here, and this will also make the place more safer. Next slide, please. This is just the exterior view, and you can see, this is a very quality work. You can see the patio with the trellis above it. This was just added on the new design, and also the bike rack, and we will have the bike repair kit also there. And and you can see the brick, and it's a fairly nice looking building. Next slide, please. And so this is another view. You can go to the next slide. So there are a couple of slides that just show the rendering, and the purpose of these is to show that we have a very quality construction, and So this is a night view. You can see the place will be well lit at the canopy and also at the building. That's all. That's my end of my presentation. Those three variances we are asking. One is for the landscaping, to reduce that because we have a very narrow site. It's impractical to make 30 feet landscaping. So we have a very we ask for variance on that. Also, we have the curb cut. Is very. We have no options because of the narrow site. We can't meet the 300 feet requirements from the center of the intersection. So we are asking for the same variance. So that's the end of my presentation. If anybody has any questions, we are ready to speak. And my colleague John Benke, he's also here to speak. He's the person who was leading the first approval. So he's also here to speak about the project.
All right, I got a quick question. Whoever's running the slides, could y'all go back to the site plans? All right, so here's my two questions, just because I can't quite read it. I'll start with the front. It looks like, as far as I love the building being a little smaller in the patio. What about the back? Did y'all get rid of some landscaping back there that used to be there?
No, so we will have that. I think that's just been mistake on the plan. Okay. But yeah, we are not changing anything there. We're going to have a still brick fence, in the back. And we still have the landscaping, it's just not shown here. So that's a mistake. Okay.
And then I like also the canopy moving. So looking at the two, there's two little oval shaped things. The first one's on the left side, then it's on the right side, but outside the canopy. What is that? I just can't read.
Those are the underground tanks. Those are the underground
tanks. Okay,
tanks.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Just wanted to know what I was looking at.
It's just easier for the truck to come and work on this side of the canopy versus on the other side. So those are underground.
Sure.
You don't even see that, yeah.
Gotcha. No, that makes sense. Are there any other questions for Mr. Kumar?
Mr. Chairman, this is John Benke. I just wanted to get on the record.
Real quick, Mr. Benke, go ahead and give your name and give me your address. I'll swear you in.
John Benke, 1164 Brookfield, Memphis.
Okay. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Benke.
I just want to add that these changes that came about were also in large part to communications we had with Amy Karkoff, who is a interior designer, noteworthy interior designer in Memphis. And so we listened to a lot of her suggestions, and I have to give her credit for some of the improved results that we have here. If the moderator could go down one slide, please. To the first rendering.
Yeah, there it is.
I think my YouTube is slow. Assuming that's up for everyone to see, one of the several suggestions was that there are a lot of people that ride bikes down in this area of town. So we've added the bike rack, and then we also, Ms. Karkoff sent me a spec sheet on a bike repair station that will also be there. And so they'll be able to ride up, they can air up their tires, and they can do any repair they like to their bike. There's a whole set of tools that hang in this nice, neat box for that purpose. And then we think it's an added amenity to have the outdoor seating and amenity. And so I just want to give credit where credit was due on this design.
Okay, very good. Any questions for Mr. Benke? Hearing none. So you guys, just so you know, y'all used 8 minutes of time that wasn't questioning stuff. So y'all have 2 more minutes in addition to your 2 minutes of rebuttal. Assuming, and there's no other, Jeffrey, there's nobody else here for this application, correct?
Correct.
In favor? Okay. Could you get us somebody from the opposition on the phone?
Yes, this is John Shepard.
All right, Mr. Shepard, can you give your name and address for the record?
Yeah, thank you. This is John Shepard. My office address is 118 16th Avenue South, Nashville, Tennessee. But I'm here on behalf of the owner of 45 Crescent Bluff Court, Memphis, Tennessee.
Okay. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, thanks. So my name is John Shepard. I work for Elmington Capital. We're developers who have been active in Memphis for the past 10 years or so. We are the owners of the apartment community directly across the street from this proposed convenience store on the other side of Florida, the Crescent Bluff Apartments. It's a 72-unit apartment complex there. This was we bought this property in 2012. I've been active in the South Main area, providing affordable and workforce housing, remediating environmental issues, building public infrastructure, and eliminating blight since then. And we are interested in this proposal as it would affect our residents across the street. And you know, the elimination or the reduction of the buffer as proposed would have an impact on our folks across the street in the form of you know, primarily headlights and noise and that kind of thing. And so we would ask that the buffer be maintained as required by code. You'll see, if you pull up on Google Maps and just look at our property across the street, you'll see an example of the type of buffer that we feel like is a good addition to this corridor. You know, it is comprised of large, you know, canopy trees, magnolias and other trees, rose bushes, other shrubs, kind of all along that all along the Crump and Florida corridor. So, we would like to see this property owner across the street through the code requirements build upon those buffer improvements or corridor improvements that we've made in landscaping. And if the 25-foot landscaping buffer isn't possible for some reason, we would ask that that it be landscaped robustly and appropriately. So the site plan that was shown online showed, I think, something like 100 or 120 shrubs and 10 or 15 trees. We think that is much better than a handful of crepe myrtles and some Bermuda grass. So we would ask that those kinds of requirements, as well as irrigation requirements, be incorporated into the board's consideration. Thank you.
All right. Are there any questions for Mr. Shepherd? Hearing none. Mr. Penzis, who's up next?
Frank B. Smith, the third.
Okay, Mr. Smith, will you give state your name and address for the record?
Yeah, Frank Smith, 7 Crump Avenue.
Okay, will you go ahead and speak to this?
Yeah, so I'd first start with a word about just my investments in the neighborhood. Starting back in 2016, I was involved in the Labor and Temple and the I Am a Man Plaza project over near the FedEx Forum. After that, I'm involved in the Wiseacre Brewery project on 3rd Avenue, and therefore, have real investment, real commitment, and a deep passion for downtown Memphis. Toward that, ended up buying 2 really important parcels nearby. One is diagonally across from the subject property. I own the property on the opposite corner, the diagonal corner from Florida and from the property at Florida and Crump, and also the 10 acres just a little to the east and south of Crump Avenue that for many years has been, kind of a blight kind of property, and have spent, the last year and a half or so dealing with TDEC and environmental issues to try to clean up the property. So that establishes my reason for being so involved and interested in what happens on this very important gateway parcel. I'm not at all in opposition to convenience store. In fact, I fully applaud the operator, Mr. Debsey's work, and have been around to see his stores in other parts of the city, and they're attractive. He works very hard to be a good neighbor where he is. So the concern is not at all about the use of the property, but the concern is the variance, and just like Mr. Shepherd, I worry a bit that a variance will set a precedence, the wrong kind of precedence when other projects start happening on Crump Avenue. It'll only be just a minute before the I-55 interchange becomes, changes from dream and aspiration into reality. And when that happens, this piece of the city is going to become the front door of the city. And so it's just really important, it seems to me, that we have the highest kinds of standards, and a variance to reduce the landscape buffer, I think is an important consideration. Understanding that the operator has kind of limited space to do his operation, and shrinking the buffer might impact that. I'm sensitive to that, but would ask that 2 things: that the Planning Commission work really hard to first confirm and establish the specs. The specs that Mr. Shepherd spoke to a minute ago are pretty unspecific, if you will. So I'd like to have a little bit more clarity about that. I'd also like to make sure that whatever happens here falls in alignment with the Downtown Memphis Commission's recent master plan process, and the Memphis 3.0 project that happened before that. So I think I'll stop right there. That's my thoughts and my concerns.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Smith. Are there any questions for Mr. Smith at this time? Hearing none. Thank you again for joining us. Mr. Penzis, do we have anyone else with us today?
Yes, the final speaker in opposition is Amy Karkoff.
Okay, Ms. Karkoff, can you give your name and address for the record?
Hi, this is Amy Karkoff. I'm a resident at 60 Virginia Avenue West, 38106.
Okay, and do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
All right, go ahead, Amy.
Hello, board, and John Benke, you're so smooth. I am here because my first preference for new development in this gateway district would not be a convenience store. However, I'm not here opposing the convenience store. I'm here because I wanted to implore the board to please hold the highest standards for UDC 3.0 and the landscaping variance that's being requested. I am a resident here for 21 years, which I find hard to believe, and feel so strongly about the neighborhood that I'm investing in a property next door to mine and putting additional apartments in there. And we are just one street north and west of this proposed development. With that said, I want the Gateway District to be redeveloped and be redeveloped as a really fantastic gateway. And therefore, I'm asking the board to hold the standards high. An example of that, I believe, is in a buffer when the distance can't be held at 25 feet, that berming up, making sure that, you know, the evergreen, 50% evergreens is maintained, and trees as well. And I see those things in these renderings. So in the public hearing notice that was sent out, it was unclear whether this was the same developer from 2019. It was unclear whether these plans that were approved with conditions, or these variances that were approved with conditions, were the same or different in the information that was provided. And so I am here in opposition to those variances being allowed. However, this developer has been fantastic. John Benke has met with me over the last day or so, and back in 2019, I offered my thoughts on some of the things that could be added to make this a true urban walking convenience store. Just as the city has recently added bike lanes down Florida up to Crump, I think having a fix-it station for bikes and the awning for respite from the sun if you're walking or biking are fantastic ads that I'm only just aware of. And I'm excited about them for this location. So also, like John Shepard has said and Frank Smith have said, I want to maintain and ask the board to please hold a high standard for variances going forward. I appreciate that the developer has added and compensated for those variances, and I look forward to seeing them in the neighborhood.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Karkoff. And you almost hit on the head too. You had 3 seconds left to talk. So good job on that. Are there any questions for Ms. Karkoff? All right. Hearing none, let's go back to Mr. Kumar. or you have 4 minutes to kind of talk and rebut any statements. I would love to hear your thoughts on landscaping and buffering and stuff like that, probably. That seems to be the biggest issue.
Yeah, I think
Mr.
Mr. John Benke, he would like to speak on my behalf for this.
Okay, very good. Mr. Binky?
Chairman Rainey, thank you. So the one important point is from the old plan to the new, the landscape buffer has been widened, but here's what we can do. To all three, Mr. Shepard, Mr. Smith, Ms. Karkup, what we can do is if Mr. Shepard, I actually went to Google Maps while they were making their statements, and I do like the landscaping that they have across the street. And what we can do is this. I'm not an arborist, but if he can send me the type of plantings that they have there, we'll mimic that on our property so that there's continuity between their property and ours. And we'll agree to that as a condition so that there's basically a match between the landscaping. So it is wider on the new plan than we originally requested in the variance. I think it's a couple feet, 5 feet smaller than the 25-foot requirement. But what we'll do is add those additional plantings to beat that up. And of course, we will keep the berming, and we would always be available if there's ever a problem with any of that landscaping. Any of them can call me. And full disclosure, Amy and I have known each other for over 20 years, and she would be sure to call me if there was a problem. So we would be happy to make sure that those are well maintained to everybody's satisfaction.
Okay. Are there any other questions for the applicant?
And this is Niraj Kumar. I also want to add that we will have an irrigation system for the landscape.
Oh, very good. I was about to ask that, so thank you for answering. Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, very good, gentlemen. If the board would like to, I would say we need a motion to approve BOA 21-00-27 as conditioned by staff.
So moved, Carson.
Second, JT.
Is there, okay, Guy? Okay, so, and then I think we got that on there. Let's go ahead and I want to see if there's okay with adding the friendly amendment to condition that the same types of trees and plantings be used on this property as the property lying to the west over across Florida Street. Is there a problem with adding that? So we have these two matching parcels? Hearing none, then that'll be ordered in part of this motion. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll say this.
Mr. Chairman, John Jackson.
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Jackson, go ahead.
I'm going to have to recuse myself from the case.
Okay.
And I didn't realize how many actual clients that I have that are presenting. In essence, I want to let board members know that and put that on the record. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jackson. I'll say this. I understand how this got delayed. A lot of commercial things didn't happen when everything kind of hit last March. It's good to see things are kind of back on track. I really like that it did get delayed because I think we have a better product than what we approved in 2019. Sorry about that. So I'm voting in favor of this. And unless there's other comments, then I'd assume you're ready to vote. Are there any other comments?
And Mr. Chairman, this may get exciting because Ms. Doss just told me she had to leave, and I'll call her first. Ms. Doss. Okay, Ms. Scarlock. Madam Vice Chair. Mr. Chairman, we can't get to 5. So what I think we should do is roll this to the next month's meeting, put it at the top of the agenda.
You think that I could could we just call her back real quick and see if we could get her? Is that possible, or does she have to call in herself?
Well, sure. Anything's possible. Well, I can beg pretty please.
I'm ready for the meeting to be over, but I'd hate to just miss it when it seems like we're about there. Maybe you can get her on the phone and have her and hold it up to the microphone. She heard the whole discussion, it sounds
She's
like.
not answering. She said she had to pick up her daughter at the ballet. How about this? I'm going to call Madeline Savage Towns. Let's see. And then I'll call Portia.
Okay.
Well, that's inappropriate because they haven't been.
I guess they didn't hear it.
Yeah. Let me calm down for a second.
Ooh. If only Mr. Jackson didn't have so much business that he had to do things with all these parties, we wouldn't be having a problem.
You're one to speak.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Oh goodness. So I guess we don't really have much of a choice to be able to do this. How about, I guess we've already discussed it, so we could easily put it on consent if nobody else comes back next week. Okay. Or next month.
Well, assuming all the extra condition you just mentioned satisfies the opposition. If not, I guess we'll find out.
Right. Yeah. It seems like it probably would. We had about the nicest opposition we could have on this case. It seems for something like this. I appreciate that. I guess then, so we can't even vote to hold, right? Because we don't have the numbers to vote on anything. Is that correct?
I was just reading the bylaws earlier. It says an application must receive 5 votes to approve. So you're not approving it. So you don't need 5 votes.
You want to try calling her real quick one more time? I'm so sorry. I'm just going to give it. Maybe she just won't ignore you this time.
Well, she did say she had to go pick up her daughter, so she's probably, talking to the person at the ballet, saying, "Hey, how you doing? Nice mask."
I was supposed to be here at 4:30.
Why is someone calling me? Don't worry, it's just Whitehead.
Okay, so I guess we're just going to have to change the. Can someone make a motion to hold this case until next month's meeting?
Yeah, I just.
So moved, Carson.
Is there a second?
Second, Mary Baker.
All right, thank you, Ms. Baker. Well, we won't have any discussion. I want to apologize to both the applicant and opposition. This kind of is beyond our control and beyond our power. But we'll do a voice vote. All those in favor of a 1-month hold signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Hearing none, this case is held till next month, and hope, opposition, feel free to come back and talk to us. That's your right to do. But if we don't hear from you, we'll probably approve this on consent as the new condition and everything like that we just talked about. So thank y'all all for coming. Sorry, Mr. Kumar and Mr. Binky. I appreciate y'all's time.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Joy just called me back, and I was busy taking a roll call. Hey, Joy, you're on speakerphone.
Okay.
Tim, can you hear me, Tim?
Yes, sir. I can hear both of you.
Okay. Hey, Joy, we need 5 votes. You saw the presentation on that gas station, right?
I didn't.
Do you?
I had to go. I dropped at 4:35 because I had to go.
Do you feel comfortable voting in the next few moments?
Let me look at it again.
Okay, that's fair.
Let me look at it again. Give me 1 second. I'm driving.
Okay, do you hear that, Mr. Chairman? She wants to look at it, but she only needs 1 second.
Will you go ahead and tell her about our amended condition on that, just to add the.
Hey, Joy.
Yes.
We did add a second sentence to condition number 2, with regard to the landscaping, requiring that the landscaping match that of the property to the west. Was that correct, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir. No, it's actually to the east. It's actually to the east.
Oh, the apartment building.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Please just read me the conditions and then I can tell you.
Okay. Let me pull up.
So while she's doing that, Josh, I'm gonna do a voice vote real quick if somebody will give a motion to vacate the hold. Reconsider the hold. Is there a motion to reconsider?
So moved, Carson.
Is there a second?
Second, JP.
All right, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed to reconsideration? All right, hearing none.
Okay, I have I closed all my windows out in prematurely, Mr. Chairman. So here, Joy, are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, so the new condition number 2 shall say, the existing language was a modified 15-foot streetscape, as shown on the site plan, shall be utilized along E.H. Crump and Florida, period. All required landscaping shall be irrigated, period. The new language would be, the landscaping shall match that of the property to the east. Those are the new apartments, Crescent Bluff, FYI.
Okay, I can give a yes vote.
Okay, so
Okay,
hold on for
Mr.
1
Chairman,
second.
do we need a motion?
Well, we have a motion to reconsider the hold. Do we now need to vote down the hold, or are we okay with going with this new motion to approve?
Well, if there's no one in opposition to reconsideration, then
Okay.
we don't need to take a vote on that.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. Thank you for that. So let's now again get a motion real quick to approve as conditioned by staff, including the new part of that condition with the matching the eastern landscaping. So is there a
So
motion?
moved, Carson.
All right, is there
Second,
a
JP.
second? All right, Mr. Whitehead, will you give us a roll call vote? And you can start with Ms. Doss.
Ms. Doss, this is a yes or no vote on the motion as amended.
Yes.
Did you hear that, Mr. Chairman?
I did. That's a yes.
Okay. Ms. Baker,
Yes.
Mr. Claybrook,
Yes.
Mr. Melasry,
Yes.
Mr. Jackson. I'm sorry,
accused.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Okay, that's 5 ayes.
That's 5 ayes. Thank you, Joy.
Thank you, Joy.
And thank you to the applicant. I know that was kind of crazy at the end. You got approved. And as much as
lady.
like my little mean streak wanted to vote no just to screw everything up, I didn't. And I think y'all are doing a great job there, so I appreciate that. And with that, you're approved. Josh, do we have any other announcements today?
No, sir, Mr. Chairman.
All right, with that, then today's meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank
Have
you.
a great day.